Everybody, happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Hang Up here on the line. I'm Matt Dillahunty. I appreciate everybody joining me this weekend. Go ahead and, click like and subscribe and all that stuff. But some of you will know that I've done religious discussions for many, many years, including the Sunday show right here on the line and the Atheist Experience and tons of debates and stuff for over 20 years now. But this is my Wednesday night show, and it tends to get more political, but not always. And that's not a requirement. I'm going to talk a little bit today about political events, but we are open to people calling in. So if you have a defense of the Bible, questions about the Bible, if you're a theist who thinks the Bible is a good enough reason to believe in a God, if you think we've, missed something about it, by all means, you can start calling in now, and we'll take calls just as soon as I'm done with my little opening dissertation on politics. I mean, we warned people about Trump and MAGA and Project 2025 and Christo-fascist Christian nationalists and not just about the religious aspect, but also about the financial aspect and, the problem with tariffs and taking a failed businessman to come in and, set aside the law and justification and due process. I mean, just facts real quickly. In 2025, Trump added 181,000 new jobs for the entire year. And if you don't know anything about job numbers, you don't know if that's a good number or a bad number. I mean, 181,000, that's a lot of jobs. And, is that a lot for a year? Is that really good? Well, you can compare it to the year before that, where in 2024 under Biden, we averaged 168,000 every month, and unemployment was at the lowest in nearly 40 years. Any MAGA folks want to explain how this can be viewed as anything other than an epic failure by Trump? Trump likes to pretend like he's going to lower drug prices by 300 to 1,500%. I can't even do an impression. I'm not going to try. 300 to 1,500% or more, a mathematical impossibility, unless he's going to actually pay us to take drugs, which I know there's people out there that would be eager to sign up for that, but Biden's job numbers are 1,100% better. So is it Trump and his supporters that both don't understand numbers? Or is it just his supporters that don't understand numbers or don't care? And he's relying on their apathy or ignorance to cover for his lies and incompetence. Also, this isn't all just about Trump. Please stop sharing memes on social media without checking and double checking. No, Pam Bondi did not say that if we prosecute everyone in the Epstein files, the whole system will collapse. That may be true, that might be what happens, but she didn't say it. I know it makes so many of you happy, and so many of us is like, we're talking about the Epstein files, and they're like, but there's Democrats in there. Like, yeah, screw them. Prosecute them too. Well, if we prosecute everybody, the whole system will collapse. Yes, fine. At this point, there are some of us who are eager for the whole system to collapse because the whole system needs a hard reset, hard reset. Today, Pam Bondi was testifying. Well, no, she wasn't. Today, Pam Bondi was called to testify before Congress. But when Pam Bondi testifies, it is literally her sitting there smugly with a hit book dossier binder where anytime she's asked a question she doesn't want to answer, she just attacks the person asking the question. For example, she was asked, why didn't you do what the law ordered you to do? Why did you do the opposite? Why are you covering for the co-conspirators and releasing victims' names? And what was Pam Bondi's answer? Why didn't you ask Merrick Garland this? You're a hypocrite, who was one of only a few people who didn't vote for this other piece of legislation that is irrelevant to this question. A legitimate question. Why aren't you following the law? That was responded to with whataboutism, name calling, and red herrings. No actual answer. Bondi was given the opportunity to apologize to the victims in the room for the DOJ releasing their names while covering up co-conspirators. And she not only refused to apologize to those victims who were standing up right behind her. And by the way, I think it's fair to call them survivors. I think it's preferable to victims. But the point is, she wouldn't apologize and instead attacked the congresswoman who asked the question personally instead of just apologizing. How hard is it to apologize. I guess if you're a lawyer and you never, ever, ever want to admit wrongdoing, and you work for an individual who lies constantly, who definitely never wants to admit wrongdoing, I guess it's really difficult to apologize. Representative Liu said, he showed a picture. He says, here's a picture of former Prince Andrew with a woman whose face is redacted. Did you do that? Did you redact that woman's face to comply with the law requiring you to redact victim information? And Pam Bondi, in a rare case, said yes. She was confused at first, but she did say yes. And Lou pointed out that this confirms then that we're looking at former Prince Andrew with a victim, which makes this evidence of a crime or potential evidence of a crime. So why did you close the investigation claiming no such evidence existed? And what was Bondi's response? Why didn't you ask Merrick Garland this? Well, I'm sorry. First of all, Merrick Garland wasn't under this Epstein Transparency Act, but it doesn't matter. And Ted Lieu agreed right off the bat. He's like, yeah, Garland and Barr and others dropped the ball on this, but you're in charge now. And you're still protecting these men. So let me ask you about Trump. And she was like, can I answer your question? He's like, you did. There's video of Trump and Epstein. Or did you see, he showed a video of Trump and Epstein at the party. And he asked her, were there any underage girls at that party or any other party? And Pam Bondi said, oh, this is ridiculous. You're trying to deflect from the great things Trump has done. There is no evidence that, and Ted Lieu reclaimed his time, says, I believe you just lied under oath, and she lost her shit. And don't you ever accuse me of a crime. And he said, I believe you just lied under oath. And this is all on videotape. Here's a witness statement that counts as evidence of a crime. No one at the DOJ interviewed this witness. There's over 1,000 victims, and you haven't held anyone responsible. You should resign right now. And what was Bondi's response? He doesn't want to talk about crimes in his state. Correct, because he's not the person who's been called here to testify. If you want to have a hearing about crimes in Lou's state and get him to answer for it, then somebody should schedule that. But that's not your job and way out of your pay grade there, Attorney General. Deborah Ross from North Carolina wanted to find out who had Ghislaine Maxwell moved to a minimum security prison that she normally wouldn't be eligible for as a sex offender, where she gets puppy time and private workouts and gourmet meals and secretarial services. I don't know about the gourmet meals, but who knows? And she's like, is that deserved? And once again, Pam Bondi had a moment of weakness and just said no. Deborah Ross said she needs to go back to maximum security, and she won't cooperate with another committee unless she gets clemency from the president. So who ordered her transfer? And Bondi says she was transferred by the Bureau of Prisons. Instead of talking about, yeah, this is it. She was transferred by the Bureau of Prisons, basically saying, wasn't me. And then continued by saying, instead of talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, who she said should die in prison. So one cool point for Pam Bondi, suggesting that Ghislaine Maxwell should die in prison. She said, instead of talking about Maxwell, you should be talking about this other victim of an unrelated crime, Irina Zaritska. Why did she pick that crime? Does that have something to do with Ghislaine Maxwell? No. It's a crime that took place in North Carolina, and Deborah Ross is a representative from North Carolina. So this was right out of the dossier of, I'm going to attack you for something completely unrelated, that in order to deflect. I'm just going to wave this red herring in front of the Congress and hope that somebody thinks my whataboutism excuses the fact that I'm not actually answering your question. Deborah Ross moved the conversation back to Pam Bondi, said, we're moving it back to you. And Bondi was like, I bet we are. And she's like, that's why we're here. It's all about you. And then asked if Trump should commute her sentence. And that one didn't get an answer either. Pam Bondi accused people of having Trump derangement syndrome, has a dossier in front of her filled with red herrings. When Lou asks a question, here's something wrong with him or his state. When Ross asks a question you don't want to answer, here's Irina Zaritska. When Massey asks a question you don't want to answer, here's how to call him a hypocrite. One of the individual representatives basically just gave a little speech about everything that had happened, and then asked her to go into her dossier and get the best one she had for him because he knew that's all she's got, which I thought was really pretty clever. But instead of pulling one out of the dossier, she decided to chastise him for making fun of the Bible. See, I told you we'd get to Bible eventually. He didn't do that. He just held up a Trump Bible and said, move over King James. That's not making fun of the Bible. That's making fun of Trump. Which is not only funny, but it's especially ironic because if anybody here is making fun of the Bible, it's her boss who has his own Bible that he's probably never read and doesn't know anything about, which is, to me, really funny. Pam Bondi evidently skipped the verses that say, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Although she did give a couple of yeses and nos. I don't want to say she never did, but she skipped that. She might have skipped the one about do not bear false witness because Ted Lieu accused her of basically lying under oath. And, you know, as the Proverbs say, lying lips are an abomination of the Lord. And there's 6 things that the Lord hates: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord. By my count, all 6 of those, and it may be 7 depending on how you divide that. That's a weird verse in English. Maybe we'll get my guest on here tonight to tell me if it's 6 or 7. Am I splitting something that shouldn't be? So 6 things are haughty eyes. That is a condescending, self-important look. I think she's guilty of that. A lying tongue. I think she's guilty of that. That's number 2. Hands that shed innocent blood. She might not have shed it directly, but she is justifying and directing the protection of those who did. A heart that devises wicked plans. I think she's doing that to bring her dossier to deflect and protect those individuals. That's 4. Feet that make haste to run to evil is 5, because she definitely runs to Trump and them. A false witness who breathes out lies, which is also a lying tongue, but that would be 6. And then the one I say is 7 is one who sows discord. So it's weird that it's probably a Hebrew thing. Maybe we'll find out tonight. But anytime the answer to any question would have exposed her or Trump, it was deflect, deflect, deflect. She did it to virtually everyone. Let's pull up some other issue that you aren't dealing with, or you ignored, or you didn't do right. With Jamie Raskin, she cited Chase Mulligan and tried to chastise Jamie for calling him a wild goose chase. Here, take a look.
Will you create a joint task force of the Department of Justice and governors and state attorney generals and district attorneys across the country to investigate the crimes that have taken place against these victims and more than 1,000 like them? The DOJ is not doing its job. Will you create a task force with state and local law enforcement to make that happen?
Gentlelady can respond if she wants to.
Thank you, Chairman. He called Chase Mulligan a wild goose chase and didn't even know who he was. He is a defendant in your own district who preyed on girls.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, you know what? If he were part of the Epstein investigation, you wouldn't do anything about it.
Boom. That's today's win. Because after a parade of whataboutism left and right, she comes after Jamie Raskin. That was an on-the-spot, quick-thinking response that exposes Pam's bullshit. Yeah, we're not here to talk about Chase Mulligan, but it's a good thing he's not in the Epstein files, because now he's actually being prosecuted for what he did. If he was in the Epstein files, Pam Bondi would have just ignored it like she's done everything else. I got news for you, U.S. citizens. Your government, which is my government, our government is corrupt. They are liars. They are engaged in a cover-up. And there will be no justice until the current administration in its entirety is removed, impeached, prosecuted, convicted, replaced with a transparent group who follows the law. There is no person alive who could honestly look at what happened today and pretend that she answered these questions. Her responses are weaker than any you're likely to see from callers to this show tonight or on Sunday. Because the callers to this show, at least, try sometimes to stay on topic and don't tend to come in with a complete deflection for everything right off the bat. If we say something like, what reason do you have for believing in a God? And they say, well, what reason do you have for not believing or believing that he isn't real? We pause and we take a break and we explain our position more accurately and we explain the burden of proof, and then we ask again. And then we will get some other parade of fallacious non-answers, but at least they will be on topic, usually. If Pam Bondi were a caller to this show, it would be, hi, Pam, what reason do you have for believing in God? Well, this show is all just a lie. You stole a piece of candy in second grade. You lied to your parents about a broken window, and you had sex out of wedlock. You're a hypocrite. Pam Bondi is on the level of the Andrew Wilson suck-ups with terminal trans derangement syndrome who just want to string us along so they can call me gay, as if that would bother me or should bother anybody. So tonight, it's going to be a bit more honest than the questioning that took place today in front of Congress. I hope. I'm hoping to avoid politics because we know that MAGA has no defense left for any of this. It's all starting to come out. We're not going to let it go. We're not going to ignore it. The question is, what can we do and what should we do? But I'm hoping that we can focus on religion a bit more tonight. It's a caller-driven show, though, and you can call in about anything. So the lines are open, and there's already a theist on hold. But before we get to that theist, and you'll be up first, Christopher, just hang on. I like having people on the show who may or may not qualify as experts under somebody's definition. I don't care. I like having people on the show who know more than I do about about a subject, or know different things about a subject, or have different areas of expertise, different ways of doing it, so that I can learn stuff. I'm an obsessive learner, and so that you can learn stuff. We can all learn something. So tonight's guest is Dalton the Bible Guy, and he's ready to do all the heavy lifting on all your religious topics. But we don't know each other very well. We talked for a few minutes right before the show. We could wind up just absolutely hating each other and ripping each other apart. You just never know. I kind of doubt it. And so while theist callers are going to take priority tonight, we will take calls on almost anything. And if you can find something that Dalton and I disagree on, you get bonus points, because I would love to sit down and have a conversation with someone who I'm confident would at least be honest in the interaction. So, hey, Dalton, welcome.
Hey, Matt, how you doing? In fact, you're not wrong. It actually is 7. The Proverbs actually says 6 things the Lord hates, 7 are an abomination to him. This is an example. It's called graded numerical parallelism, and it's meant to set the expectation, and then it goes one more in order to escalate it. So Amos 1:3 says something very similar. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, and for 4 I will not revoke the punishment. So this is just a common Hebrew idiom.
That is so cool. I didn't even notice it until I was sitting here. I was like, I've heard that verse my whole life, and I was like, I'm just going to go, and I know it's 6 things. And actually, there's an Indigo Girls song that references the first half of that verse, where it's haughty eyes and lying tongue and hands that shed innocent blood. That's actual lyrics in an Indigo Girls song, which is why that first half sticks in my head. And the second half, which is a little more cumbersome, it doesn't stick in as well. And I was like, hang on, that sounds like 7. So tell everybody who you are, where they can find you, and how the hell are you doing?
So I'm Dalton the Bible Guy. That name is a little bit confusing for people on TikTok. They come on, they think I'm a Christian, but no, I'm called the Bible Guy because Christians, I know the Bible better than you do. That's the saying we say there. Christians on TikTok aren't very biblically literate, but I'm called the Bible Guy on YouTube and TikTok, and basically we don't do a lot of philosophy or politics on my show. We mostly just talk about the Bible, like Jesus failed to fulfill even one messianic prophecy. There's no good reason to believe Jesus resurrected from the dead, these kind of topics, and we mostly just stick to Bible topics on my show.
Awesome. Well, if you're ready, we've already got a theist who wants to explain why the Bible is reliable evidence for God. And, who knows how biblical we're going to get versus how philosophical we're going to get. But if you're up for it, we'll take Christopher and get started. And if you're a theist out there, by the way, you can pick up the phone and call in. If you don't feel that your version of theism, be it Christianity, Judaism, Scientology, whatever, if you don't feel that your version is being represented very well, you're allowed to call in. 720-619-2288. There's also a link down below in the web for a web call in. Please, if you use your cell phone to call in on the web link, Please be paying attention because your phone tends to go to sleep and the browser on your phone tends to go to sleep. So you may have to tap it twice to wake it up in order for us to hear you. Also, be patient because there's a little bit of a delay. And I'm gonna try to take a bit of I'm never a back seat on my show, but a side seat, I guess. But there's a delay, and that means we're probably going to have to interrupt. We're probably going to have to ask for clarification, and don't take it personally. If you just call in and have an honest conversation, you might end up on here for 2 hours with us and be the only call. I kind of doubt it, but it's possible. And when the show is, when we're done with the calling portion of the show, we'll be taking and reading all the super chats that come in over $10. And I'll have more announcements and stuff coming up shortly. Let's get started. Christopher's calling from Ohio. Pronouns are he, him, wants to explain why the Bible is reliable evidence for God. How are you doing, Christopher? Thank you for calling.
I'm good. How are you guys?
Not too bad. Well, I got sick last night, so I didn't sleep much. So Dalton's going to do all the heavy lifting.
Sorry to hear that.
I'm excellent.
So I would just, I would like to start my argument off. The first reason why I believe that the Bible is reliable evidence for God is because of 3 reasons. Historical reliability, which is the duration, the amount of time it took to write the Bible, then the eyewitness testimony, and the fulfilled prophecies within the Bible. The
All right.
first
Well,
reason,
I mean, I'll say which one of those do you want to start with? Yeah, which one of those do you want to start with?
We can start with the historical reliability, if that's okay. You guys want to do that?
Okay.
All right.
So the Bible
caller
is actually. Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
all right, sorry. There's like a little bit of a delay here, so I'm trying to keep up with y'all. But the Bible is actually not just a single book, but it's actually a collection of about 60 books written over 1,500 years by multiple people. And despite that, it's actually well attested compared to like other ancient
Christopher?
works. Like they're sorry, you calling my name?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. My fault.
I guarantee you that Dalton and I know that it's 66 books and can name every one of them in order. Are you reading this? Did you like prepare this? And is this yours, or are you reading somebody else's argument?
No, this is mine.
Okay, cool.
I mean,
I just wanted to let you know that.
So
no. I'm eager to hear what it is, but also, if we cannot turn this into like 5 minutes of rudimentary basics and actually get to what you think is historically reliable, because I don't know how to verify the historical reliability of supernatural events, and I don't think that the Bible mentioning real places and real people means that the other things that it mentions are reliable. So we'll get to that, but sorry to interrupt. Continue.
Okay. Well, if you want to dismiss number 1, then we can go to the eyewitness testimony part. Jesus, there's countless eyewitness testimonies of the resurrection. He was publicly executed, but his tomb was found empty.
We don't have to
claim to see him alive.
Christopher, we don't have to skip number 1. We can talk about the areas of the Bible where historicity is way the hell off. For example, Christopher,
you think it's off?
How familiar?
You think it's off?
Yeah, Christopher, how familiar are you with the nativity stories of the Gospels?
Unfortunately, I'm not well versed.
You know, the birth of Jesus, those stories, Matthew,
the birth of Jesus?
1 and 2.
Oh yeah, I am. I am. Sorry.
Well, would you confirm or deny that Jesus was born during the reign of King Herod the Great?
I don't know who the hell that is, so I cannot attest to that. But what I can say is that I'm sure he was born at least 2,000 years ago, and he died for our sins. King Herod, he's going to come back.
King Herod the Great. He's the one who, according to the Gospel of Matthew, butchered all of the infants in Bethlehem who were 2 years old and under.
Okay.
So was Jesus born during the reign of King Herod the Great?
I don't know. Where are we going with this? Like, if I say yes, are you gonna like catch me in a trap? If I say no, what's gonna happen? Like, I don't.
Well, I mean, if the truth
not-
if the truth is with you, you don't have to worry about traps, right? You can just like answer honestly. So, like the Gospel of Matthew says that Jesus was born when King Herod the Great was the king of Judea. Do you like accept
I
that
mean,
as
yeah,
true,
the
or
truth
do
is
you
within
deny
me, but
it?
it sounds like you're just trying to like get into semantics. Like,
Not semantics.
Hey,
Historical
could you
facts.
define semantics for me?
define semantics.
Yeah. What's semantics mean?
Unnecessary complication of basic phrases. That's how I
No,
would
that's
define
not
it.
that's not what semantics means. Semantics is a study of what
Can
words
you
mean
define
and
it?
how semantics is a study of what words mean and how they're used. He's Dalton's asking you because you're talking about you think the Bible's historically reliable, yet you didn't, and you're evidently conversant with the birth narratives, but you didn't know that they were called nativity stories. You don't know who Herod the Great was, and you seem to be seeking out, hey, are we trying to trap you with a trick question when all that's happening is somebody's asking you, do you believe this? And you won't answer. So forgive me, please. We get a lot of prank calls. We get a lot of people who aren't serious. I'm having a really difficult time taking you seriously when you're calling in to tell us about the historical reliability and you don't seem to know anything at all about the subject. And you want to say, oh, is this just semantics? When semantics aren't remotely relevant to what you were being asked.
Okay, I apologize. I understand your frustration. I was unaware of your like previous encounters with people on the show. I'm not playing around. I'm actually trying to have a conversation here. So yeah, I apologize.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's fine.
So the Gospel of Matthew states that Jesus was born during the reign of King Herod the Great. Do you confirm this fact about the Gospel of Matthew?
Sure. Yeah. Yes.
All right. Now, historically speaking, King Herod the Great ruled from 40 BCE to 4 BCE when he died. His kingdom was divided amongst his three sons: Herod Archelaus, Herod Philip, and Herod Agrippa. Now, the Gospel of Luke says in the Luke chapter 2, verse 1, that Jesus was born when there was a census under Quirinius of Syria. Do you also agree with that?
Yes.
Well, here's the main problem with that, bud. The census of Quirinius took place 10 years after Herod the Great was already dead. It would be like someone saying that the Bible guy was born in 1996 under Clinton, while another person said the Bible guy was born in 2006 under Bush. Like it's historically an impossibility.
Where are these verses that you are getting this from? Because
He literally quoted. He gave you the verse. He literally gave you the verse.
It's really easy.
No,
Matthew 2, 1 through 2.
Gospels.
Yeah, Matthew 2, 1 through 2, and Luke 2, 1 through 2. It's literally the different gospels, but same chapter, same verses.
So you're saying that because this small detail is inconsistent, that the Bible is just impossible, can't be true at all?
Oh, no.
It's not small.
So first of all, you called in, and your first point that you want to defend was the historical reliability. And at the very first opportunity, Dalton provided an example of a biblical contradiction that demonstrates, at least on that point, it is not historically reliable. Something that you didn't know, in addition to seemingly anything else. So what is it that convinces you it's historically reliable if the very first example shows it's not?
Okay, we did not finish analyzing the first example, so no, I wouldn't say that my first point has been dismantled. But yes, the eyewitness testimony and the fulfilled prophecies within the Bible, as well as
I'm sorry. You kind of skipped past what we were talking about here. We're still talking about, is the Bible historically reliable? We gave you an example of where that's impossible. Do you have any examples of historical reliability?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, give us one.
Okay, just because. So, okay, the historical reliability argument, I say it's historically reliable because it spanned over thousands of years, yet people were able to get, that's a minor detail. The larger details people were still able to get correct.
Stop, Christopher. In mid-sentence, you realized that you had no examples of historical reliability, and so you shifted and cut it off to say, that's a minor detail. I'm asking you for an example that confirms the historical reliability, and you just quit in mid-sentence to say it's just a minor detail. So is historical reliability something that you can demonstrate or not?
Yes, I can demonstrate the historical reliability, but
Let's do that.
you keep cutting me off, Matt.
Oh, no,
You
no,
cut me
that's a
off.
lie. I'm sorry, that's a lie. We are both sitting here engaging in a good faith conversation, and we're asking you questions. And I have on multiple occasions now asked you to defend this. And you cut yourself off by stopping when you realized you didn't have an example and saying that's just a minor discrepancy. So don't start lying now that I'm cutting you off. I want you to give your example that you think confirms the historical reliability, or alternatively, you can say, I can't demonstrate historical reliability. I'd like to go on to the next example.
I'm sorry, but I'm not going to concede to that. We can talk about the historical reliability. I'll point you to that right now.
I'm sorry, Christopher. So first of all, Arden, if you can, you gave a threefold thing: historical reliability. You now either need to demonstrate an example of historical reliability, or say, I can't do that, but I'd like to move on to the next one. That's the only option now. You don't get to move on to the next one unless you concede the first one. Is that clear?
Okay. Yeah, yes, it's clear. It's clear. Let me first explain to you why that inconsistency appears in the first place. That inconsistency appears because God gave his perfect message to imperfect people. If you want to look at the actual Bible manuscripts, you can. They're from the New Testament alone. There's over 5,800 Greek manuscripts, and I think it's got 20,000 manuscripts in other languages. So you can look at the...
Christopher, the number of times you write something down doesn't make it more true. If the Gospels have a historical contradiction within them, if I write that historical contradiction down 10,000 times, it doesn't suddenly undo the past and make that contradiction go away.
And I'm never going to be impressed. I'm never, ever going to be impressed with someone who tries to Google an answer that they've already failed to give. And so your whole thing here is to give an example of something that confirms historical accuracy. Your job was not to say
I'm fucking Googling answers when earlier you only...
Okay, I'm going to mute you because you're never going to interrupt me on my own fucking show, guaranteed. The question was, you need to demonstrate, give me an example of something that confirms historical reliability. You were not asked to justify the discrepancy that you did not know anything about and were not aware of a moment ago. This is you are being embarrassingly transparent as a fraud right now, because you had no fucking clue what he was talking about, didn't know the verses, but now you think you can justify it. And that's because God delivered his messages to fallible human beings who are going to get some things right. And yes, you didn't even have access in your mind to a suitable apologetic in response to what Dalton said. But here's the thing. This is where we're at now. I'm being as generous as I will ever fucking be, guaranteed, with liars who I have no patience for, frauds who I have no patience for. You don't know anything about the subjects, you don't know anything about evidence, and you don't know anything about the Bible. And so you're clearly Googling or using ChatGPT or whatever. You should stop trusting the large language models, by the way. But I'm going to say this again because this is the point we're at. You need to either say, here's my example for why I think the Bible is historically accurate, or you need to say, I don't have an example for historical accuracy. I'd like to move on to eyewitness. That's the only option. If anything other than those comes out of your mouth when I unmute you, we will just move on to one of the many other callers that will be calling in shortly. I'd love to give you the opportunity. If you want to move on to the eyewitness thing, all you have to do is say, I don't currently have an example of historical reliability. Let's move on to eyewitness stuff. Or you can give an example that we can address on historical reliability. That's it. Those are the options. Let's try this again, Christopher. Welcome back to the show.
I don't currently have an example of historical reliability. I would like to move on to eyewitness. But the only
Awesome.
reason that okay. Let me chill. Okay. That's fine. Yeah, we can move on. We can move on to the eyewitness part. But you're forcing me into a corner here, Matt, and I don't think I like your fucking attitude.
Okay, I'm going to mute you, Christopher. This is so much fun. You know, if there were other theists on hold right now, which there's not. So if there's theists out here who are embarrassed that this little kid is lying and pretending and whining and being a fraud through this, please call in and do a better job of defending the religion that he's currently shitting on. Okay? I don't care if you like my attitude. We're bending over backwards to give you a chance to do something that I think you're a complete fraud about. Prove me wrong. You have a golden opportunity here. Here you go. Just for you, Christopher. I don't do shit like this often because I'm just a dude just here doing this. But for you, I'm the OG. I'm the OG motherfucker. Call in, dude. 20 fucking years doing this, owning motherfuckers left and right. I'm schooling you. Dalton's here. You know how awesome it would be if you could prove that I'm wrong? If you could make a case for something? Because I'm already going to tell you right now, your historical reliability, probably, I mean, it's not the first time we've heard this, probably not going to go anywhere. Your eyewitness thing, there are no confirmed eyewitness accounts in the entire New Testament or anywhere in the Bible, really, but in the entire New Testament. Now, you say there's countless eyewitnesses. I'm literally giving you the opportunity to get past the historical reliability and make your case for eyewitnesses, something that Dalton and I have been destroying for ages and is one of the most, the only thing that's more embarrassing perhaps than the average Christian thinking these are eyewitness accounts when absolutely no biblical scholar would affirm this. The only thing that's more embarrassing than that is your third example, which is fulfilled prophecy, which is Dalton's expertise. So I'm going to take you off mute again. I don't need you to tell me how you don't like my attitude. I need you to do what you're obligated to do. To defend the gospel of Jesus Christ, that is the power of God until salvation. To do what you're ordered to do under 1 Peter 3:15, to be prepared at all times to give a reason for the faith that's within you. See, two of the three of us know the fucking Bible. Two of the three of us know the arguments. Two of the three of us know what the word nativity means. Two of the three of us aren't frauds. Please try again. I'm going to hit a complete reset button. I'm going to pretend like nothing else in this call has happened and that you weren't a problem. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Christopher back to the show. Christopher's pronouns are him. Christopher's a theist who wants to explain why he finds the Bible reliable. He's already given up on historical reliability for today. He's welcome to call back some other day with examples of historical reliability. Let's find out if he wants to address the claim that the Bible has countless eyewitness accounts in it, or if he'd like to move on to fulfilled prophecy. Welcome to Dalton and the OG. Christopher, how are you?
I'm great, Matt. You seem to be in a good mood as well.
Yes, you have put me in a much better mood. I was sick last night. I'm very tired, but I'd like for you and Dalton to have a good conversation. So I'm going to stop now, which should make you really happy.
I don't know. You seem to be the least well-versed out of the three of us on this topic, but it's okay. I'll let you go.
I can confirm that Matt knows what he's talking about. Do you have any examples of eyewitness accounts in the Bible, Christopher? I'm not aware of any.
In the Bible? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, before we get into like the actual people within the Bible, the witnesses themselves, I would first like to talk about the witnesses as a whole. There were hundreds of reported eyewitnesses' testimonies that most of them can't particularly be named because back then, like, most of these people, they had no status to even be
Can you name
down.
any of them?
But these people, can I name any of them?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's been a long time since I've read Genesis specifically. I've been delving into Revelation, so I don't exactly remember the name of the woman who went into Jesus' tomb. But
Are you
I
fucking
remember,
kidding me? Dalton,
What?
please describe Genesis and Jesus's tomb before we drop Christopher as the obvious fucking fraud that he is.
Yeah, so first and foremost, we don't know who the author of Genesis is, Christopher. So and also the book of Genesis, even if you want to take Mosaic authorship, Moses wasn't an eyewitness to any of the events of Genesis as they predate his birth, his alleged birth. And then in regards to Mary Magdalene, there's a whole nother problem with Mary Magdalene, mostly that most scholars would say that perhaps Mary Magdalene just didn't exist. When we look at the writings of the Apostle
hold on.
Paul,
But these
who is the
people, but
oldest?
there's
I
hundreds of
wasn't
other
done yet. I
people,
wasn't
and they
done
wouldn't
yet.
have died.
I wasn't done yet. I wasn't done yet.
Sorry.
When we talk about Mary Magdalene, when we look at the oldest Christian writings being the writings of the Apostle Paul, when Paul gives us a list of apparent people that Jesus apparently appeared to, Mary Magdalene's nowhere on that list. The first person he says that Jesus appeared to was Peter. So you would think that Paul would have some knowledge of Mary Magdalene. It's most likely that she's a fabrication of like the Gospels, which were written decades after the alleged events took place. So who are these eyewitnesses?
The Jewish common people of the time, and I'm
Name them.
sorry, I can't let this go. Look, you guys are constantly disrespecting me. I'm not a fraud. I know the Bible. I can name almost any Bible verse. Psalm chapter 1. I can name the whole chapter at the top of my
Christopher,
head.
you didn't. Christopher, you didn't even know who Herod.
Like,
Christopher, you didn't even know who Herod the Great was.
why is that relevant?
We learned about
like,
that.
do I pray to God or do I pray to Herod the Great?
I didn't say you prayed to Herod the Great, but even when I was a Christian, every single Christmas, we heard the story of Jesus' birth. Everyone who's a Christian is supposed to at least know who Herod the Great was, and you don't even know. You don't know about that, and now you're obfuscating. You're refusing to actually name any witnesses. Instead, oh yes, that's why I know the Bible better than you.
Oh my God, you're hilarious, Christopher.
You don't know
can I ask you a question, Christopher? Is that all right?
Depends. But I know neither of you know the Bible better than me. But what's the question? That's okay.
Okay. Why are you doing this? Are you like recording it for a funny clip? Are your boys hanging out with you? Are you too young to get laid? Do your parents not love you? What's going on?
This is how you treat people who try to come on here to have good faith conversations.
No. You're not trying to have a good faith conversation. You literally know absolutely nothing about any of this. When we started talking about eyewitnesses, your first thing was, it's been a long time since I read Genesis. And then you immediately said, you know the Bible better than either of us and can quote almost anything. So what's Genesis 1:4?
Genesis 1:4, I'm assuming it's about creation.
Oh, but you said you knew all the Bible verses. What's Genesis 1:4?
I can't say it word for word. I'm not a fucking dictionary.
Can you tell me at all what it's about?
Creation. Something about creation.
How about Joshua 8? What's that about?
Is it Jesus talking to one of his disciples?
Yeah, so Joshua is in the Old Testament and Jesus isn't mentioned in the Old Testament, which is why you also sounded silly when you went to Genesis when you were talking about eyewitnesses related to Jesus. You don't even know the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. You didn't know there were 66 books. You knew there were 60-something. You're an obvious, embarrassing fraud. I just want to know why you're doing this.
Because I'm trying to convert both of you. I can see there's something within you guys. There's like a deep darkness. I'm trying to help you, but if you want to treat me
Bible
like
knowledge
shit,
is what's within
I want
us.
to help you.
Yeah. We both know the Bible and have studied it for most, if not all, of our lives. I mean, I started at the age of 5 when I walked down the aisle at a church to accept Jesus into my heart. When did you accept Jesus into your heart?
Well, you must not have actually accepted him.
Okay. That's cool. How do you know that? Doesn't the Bible say that God's the only one who knows who's really saved and not?
Yeah, but if you pray to God, he reveals the answers to you, and God has revealed to me you did not actually try.
God has revealed to me that you're a liar.
God has revealed to me that you can kiss my ass.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say before I go tell your mommy that you're on the internet longer than you're supposed to be?
I'm still trying to have a good faith conversation here, but you guys
You're
are
almost laughing at
actually
it.
messing it up.
You're almost laughing
I'm
at it,
not.
and
My fucking voice cracked.
I have your phone number, and I'm gonna, all right. I'm gonna call your parents. It's gone too much now, Christopher. Thanks for trying. We'll see you later.
Call your wife and ask where she's been, because she's been in my fucking bed the whole time call.
My wife's been in your bed the whole phone call? Hey, honey, have you been in his bed the whole phone call?
No, I've been wrangling this stupid fucking dog who's been barking her ass off.
Gosh, she's literally down the hall producing this. That's how stupid you are, Christopher. This is why I'm saying, I genuinely, it's okay. I just want to know why you're doing this. Is this just fun for you? Were you bored? You know, do you not have friends?
I'm trying to have a good faith conversation here. I'm trying to help you
you're
guys.
not,
I'm trying to help you guys have a relationship
You're not,
with God,
Christopher.
a physical relationship, a metaphysical relationship, sexual.
You're absolutely not. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and ban your phone number because you couldn't be honest with me. I mean, if you at some point would have had anything at all, like even at the end, when I asked why you were doing this, I mean, here, I'll give you one last chance. I'm going to unmute you. Please tell me why you're doing this. Otherwise, I'm going to ban your phone number and you'll never be able to call again.
So you're just going to ban me because I've been trying to have a good conversation?
Yep. Welcome to ban.
I'm trying to.
No. You don't get to say another word ever, Christopher. Let's go ahead and click the ban call on that one. Arden, you got it?
On it.
I'm sorry, but you don't get to call me at all until you get your parents' permission.
Matt, I don't think Christopher knows what the phrase good faith means.
Well, I would argue there's probably not good faith. But at least colloquially, I can kind of go with that. Wow, I'm so bummed because we only had that one theist caller. There's an atheist caller on hold, but I was really looking forward to getting you at least one decent caller to start things off with. When you're doing stuff like this, how often do you get people who just aren't remotely serious and it's just, let me waste your time?
Oh man, most Christian callers end up becoming Christopher when they realize that, oh shit, I don't know the Bible well enough to have this conversation, so they end up just throwing feces by the end of it. It's very rarely that we get like good faith actual callers who are interested in genuine conversation.
And I'm seeing a lot more of that. I mean, you know, in all the years that I've done this, I mean, we used to get, once upon a time back when we were on public access on Atheist Experience, we would get a lot of calls, but they were all in Austin. And then when we branched out to the internet, you know, in the early days of doing this, we would get callers from around the world. And now it seems like Christians have given up on, by and large, on proselytizing apologetics in any real sense across lines like this. I mean, even a lot of the guys that I've debated, and including some that I thought were decent people, like Than, who's now hanging out with a bunch of philo bros trying to convert Muslims because, you know, if they get Muslims and ex-Muslims, they've got somebody who's already failed to understand the nature of evidence. And so it's really easy to get them to, oh, I left Islam because I didn't like this. Well, that's cool. You should, you know, become a Christian. And then we can work together against those godless heathens, except that they don't show up with any evidence or argument. And in this case, we're just getting little kids who, I mean, I would have a better conversation with ChatGPT, and I despise the large language model stuff. It's wrong as often as it's right. It's probably going to destroy the world if MAGA doesn't do it first. And it's like, I wish Christopher would have just said, hey man, I'm just having a bit of fun. I won't do it again, or I'll only call in if I have something like a serious question. But it's like, you're so right, Christopher. I am definitely the weakest of the three of us on Bible knowledge. I'm definitely the weakest of the two of us that are still on. But I'll just go ahead and grant you, Christopher, if you have any friends or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you can go ahead and tell them that you are way better about the Bible than I am, and that I said so. Because while I don't like to lie, since you do, I think it's fair for me to lie right back at you. All right. We don't have any other theists right now, so if you're a theist, you can get your call in. But we've got Derek, who's an atheist, calling from Utah, Prince of him, trying to wrap his head around something. And Derek, you think you had a spiritual experience?
Yeah. Hi, Matt. Hi, Dalton. So I'm an atheist now, but I was raised Mormon. And so many years ago, I had an experience. So my church would do this thing where we would go on a trip and we would basically act as pioneers and, you know, like pull hand carts and that sort of thing. And so on part of this trip, we were done for the day. We'd just eaten dinner, and my brother and I wanted to go climb some rocks. And so, you know, we were kind of sticking together, buddy system type of thing. Anyway, we were trying to, you know, hike over to where the rocks were, kind of a small hill or mountain. And at this certain point, I just had this feeling like if I go up there, something bad might happen. And at the time, of course, I attributed that to being the Holy Spirit. But now I no longer, you know, believe that anything spiritual even exists. So I'm just kind of wondering, what might that have been?
I would say the best explanation for that is that human beings are pattern-seeking individuals. You may have even subconsciously picked up on some sort of danger that was awaiting you at the top of the hill, and your brain picked up on that, and when you just registered that as danger without even realizing it.
Yeah, makes sense.
So why would we think it's the Holy Spirit?
Well, I really don't anymore. You know, it's just, you know, back then that's what I believed in. And yeah, I didn't have any better explanation. I hadn't really thought it through, though, really. It's only something that
Evolutionary
recently.
Yeah, evolutionary psychology tends to explain lots of our spiritual faculties in the brain. You know, even something as simple as feeling a presence in the room with you goes down to like hyperagency detection awareness. The human brain has been evolving for hundreds of thousands of years. I mean, millions if you go prior to hominids, and our brains are just really well adapted to seeing patterns, even when there aren't even patterns, which is sometimes falls to our detriment, and being able to sense danger prior to it happening because it helped with their survivability. And now we attribute some of that to spirits or premonitions, but in reality, it's all biological. It's all science.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, Derek, it's clear that at some point you thought you had some reason for thinking it was a spiritual experience or supernatural or whatever. And now you don't think so, but it's stuck with you. And what you were asking was, hey, what's the best explanation for it? What if we didn't have any explanation at all? Why would we ever be justified in thinking it was supernatural just because we didn't know what it was?
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I no longer believe that it's supernatural. I was just. It's something that I had recently thought of. You know, I've been watching a lot of The Line recently, and I guess I hadn't. Even though I guess I'm an atheist now, I hadn't put a lot of thought into it until recently. You know, by, you know, you guys will take down people's, you know, beliefs or get them to analyze their beliefs. And it sort of made me start to think about that stuff for myself as well.
Well, Derek, I would suggest that the area that you really want to focus in on if you want further explanation on this specific topic is the cognitive science of religion. This is a field where people have studied like how our brains have like how our cognition, our brain functions, how they play into the formation of religious beliefs, including belief in the Holy Spirit and spirits in general. And that's really the direction you want to go for like further detail on that. These like phenomenon that we experience.
All right. I didn't really have anything else, but thanks for taking my call.
Sure. Yeah. It's worth reminding you, me, everybody else, that it's common for us to be uncomfortable with the unexplained, the unknown. Something happens, we don't know what it is. And so religions and other supernatural woo peddlers and stuff like that have exploited that and pretended to offer explanations. Oh, that feeling you get when we're singing, singing that praise song, or that kind of elation and goose, that's the Holy Spirit. And if you don't know anything about the psychology, and at some point we definitely didn't, and you don't know anything about the physiology, about how music impacts people, about how group dynamics impact people, and you don't have any other explanation, and everybody around you is saying, oh, it's the Holy Spirit, you just go with it. That's what I did. And I can still have those same experiences. I don't get them as often, like if I'm in church, which is rare these days, but I will occasionally go to a church and they're singing a song that used to move me. It no longer moves me, but the music can still do that. And the experiences that we have, looking at things that are beautiful, look at the trees, look at the flowers, look at the nature stuff. Anytime we're uncomfortable with not knowing, somebody's going to be there to try to give an answer. And what we need to really do is train ourselves to exercise critical thinking and skepticism and say, you know what? I don't yet have enough information to accept that that's the right answer. And if I do, if I even for a moment say, ooh, I'm going to go with that until I get something better, how much time are you going to spend looking for a better answer if you think you already have an acceptable one? And that's what keeps so many people mired in religious thinking, so that even when you're not in church, when you have an experience like the one you're describing, you came across something, and even years later, when you no longer are a believer of the religion and you don't believe in that it's supernatural, it's still nagging at you. It was nagging you enough to say, hey, here's an experience I have does anybody have an explanation for it? And I Dalton's answer was fine, and there's a number of other possible things that people could propose. But man, I just wanted to say thanks for reminding us that it's very obvious how uncomfortable we are generally with not knowing, and how easily that's exploited, and how each of us can exploit it ourselves to say, ooh, I don't want to deal with the anxiety of saying, oh, I don't know that, so I'll just go with whatever feels closest, which is why Christopher thinks he knows more about the Bible than the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I appreciate the call, Derek. Thanks so much.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Yep. All right. So we're starting to get some more calls in and queued up. We've got it's in the screening room, I guess. I will wait until it's ready for screening. So, Dalton, is the Earth most likely flat or roundish?
Oh, it depends. If you're talking about the Bible, flat. If you're talking about reality, definitely a globe. Sadly, I mean, while most Christians are willing to forsake science for the sake of like the age of the Earth and dinosaurs and stuff like that, for some reason, when it comes to the flat Earth, they seem to start ignoring what the Bible actually says. Strangely enough.
I remember. So it's weird. I accepted science and evolution, and I don't remember any thought other than we live on a globe, on an oblate spheroid, when I was growing up. And yet, like if I ask my parents, like, do they believe in evolution? And I haven't asked them this in years. I think the last time I talked to my dad about it, he was kind of like, oh, I accept the science. I don't know how God did it, but God did it. I think that's where we were. And kind of the way I grew up. So I just went with all the science. And I was like, if the Bible and man's understanding of the Bible disagree with what science has to say, science is going to win. But no matter how much science wins, there's still a God underneath it. And it was only because I didn't have a good enough understanding of the limits of science and limits of what it meant for what would God have to do? God would have to start off a universe with a certain set of parameters that lead inevitably to the naturalistic process of physics and chemistry that lead to life for us to see the world that we see. And that God is virtually indistinguishable from the sort of deistic God that kicked off the ball and got it rolling and then, doesn't interfere. Except that if God doesn't interfere, how is it that, the various Bible stories of God interfering can make any sense? Do we need to take them all as as metaphors, stories, analogies, life lessons? How literal should things be taken? And we've got a caller calling in to talk about a little bit of this. Devin's an atheist from Washington. Pronouns are he, him. There's been a rise of flat earthers and just blatant stupidity lately with people not believing in space or evolution. It seems to be fueled by religion. Do you guys have a lot of experience dealing with these people? What's the remedy? So, hey, Devin, I tried to tee it up while you were being screened.
What's that?
I tried to tee up your question while it was being screened. So go ahead and jump on in.
Yeah, it just seems lately there's just been like a wave of ignorant people and flat earthers, and it kind of coincides with Christianity. And it would seem like that learning new information would resolve this, but people are kind of allergic to logic, it seems. So like, what do you think are like ways to kind of combat this kind of thinking?
Well, I'd say there are two kinds of people when it comes to this topic. On the one hand, you're going to have certain Christians who, when confronted with the Bible being a flat earther book, they're going to side with the science, and then they're going to start their deconstruction, which is exactly what happened to me. It was the flat earth topic that actually led me ultimately to rejecting the Bible, because when I saw the Bible was clearly a flat earther book and the science clearly rejected that, I went in the direction of deconstruction. Then there are other people who are so adamant that they want to believe what they want to believe, that no amount of evidence really at the end of the day is going to convince them to forsake the cult. They're going to just end up rejecting science. And I think, this current administration has a little bit to do with that. A little bit of like the further destabilization, the further distrust of institutions, science. I think Matt could probably speak more about the harm that the MAGA cult has had on, the thinking in America and how this kind of plays into the flat earthism.
Yeah, I mean, is there any kind of gray? Because I don't know that much about the Bible. I usually try to cook people on just like basic logic or science related stuff. But is there any kind of like gray area in the Bible about the earth being flat or round? Because I think I read the verse once. It said something about like it being a circle. Does it clearly state the earth is flat, or how does it kind of allude to that?
So one thing that's always important to note is that the Bible is not univocal. It doesn't, consistently hold to the same view, because we got different authors, different time periods, and each of them have their own perspective. Now, when it comes to the Hebrew Bible, unilaterally, yes, it's a flat earth book. I mean, circles are flat, not spheres. The New Testament, however, you're getting to a point in Judaism where Hellenistic thought, Greek thought has influenced the Jewish people to a degree to where they no longer have this view of a flat earth with a dome sitting over it, but rather, like most people in the day, they believed in a spherical earth that was the center of the known world and 7 concentric spheres of the heavens, and Paul kind of alludes to that with the third heaven where paradise is located. But in the Old Testament, they basically hold to the flat earther model, which but that's just because they were a bunch of backwater Iron Age like people who didn't know any better.
So basically, people that are that well learned in the Bible are either become flat earthers or they deconstruct, I'm guessing. Because a lot of people, some people don't take it literally, but I mean, I guess you should if you're a Christian, which,
some Christians will take the metaphorical route. They'll say that these things are metaphor, and they'll do the same thing with the creation days, and they'll start to accept, of theistic evolution, for example, and the old Earth theory and stuff like that. And then those who are a bit more fundamentalist, they'll just double down on their science denial, and they'll just go ham on denying not only the age of the universe, but the fact that they think that the Earth now is flat, which is absolute brain rot.
Yeah, I got distracted.
It's scary, man, because I had a colleague at work that literally doesn't believe in space, and it's like normal people now are getting brainwashed, and it's kind of scary.
I got distracted for a second. Did you mention the tree from which you can see the entire Earth?
No, I didn't mention that. I did mention that MAGA probably has a huge influence in like the rise of flat earthism.
Yeah, I remember growing up, hey, it's a globe. I had a globe. I used to collect globes until I had to get rid of them. They just take up space and then you gather dust and you never mess with them. Like all the other things I've collected over the years. But there's a verse, I think it's in Isaiah, where there's a tree from which you can see the entire Earth. And there's tons of discussions about whether that means whether you can see the entire Earth or whether you can see the world. And the author was just talking about their local world. Because on a globe or an oblate spheroid, it is impossible for there to be some spot from which you could ever see the entirety of the Earth. I mean, it's just impossible. But I can tell you this, discussions about that verse never entered my mind or my experience until I was an atheist.
Yeah.
25, 30 years going to church. Nobody talks about that. Actually, most of the time, nobody talks about the Old Testament anyway, because it's really inconvenient to start describing the Bible's take on slavery. And then, the only time we went to the Old Testament was when we were digging around for things that we could call a prophecy that aren't.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because a lot of Christians will say they don't care about the Old Testament or I don't care about Judaism. But isn't Judaism the religion Jesus supposedly fulfilled? So they'd be kind of not even...
it's definitely the religion that Christianity's sprung forward from. It's like the root of the branch, so to speak, at least one form of Judaism. But yeah, I mean, Christians are all gun-ho for Judaism until it's an inconvenience. You got you got moms in churches wearing tallits and blowing shofars, but as soon as Judaism becomes inconvenient for them, that's when they'll just like set it to the side, like, oh, we don't do that stuff anymore. Yeah. Cultural appropriation, yes. Keeping kosher, no.
I tell you this, Devin, I'm gonna interrupt here to thank you and let you go, because we actually have somebody who's willing to explain why the Bible's reliable evidence for God, and I don't think any of us are going to answer. I don't even know how many of the flat earthers are real or legit, but I do like the fact that even some believers like Will Duffy, who did the final experiment, that of course isn't going to be the final experiment.
Right. It never will, even if they go to space, I'm guessing.
I will say it was the final for some of them, which was nice. But thanks for calling, Devin. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.
All right. We have Arden's back, wants to do a couple of announcements, and then we're going to take Kevin, who's going to explain why the Bible's reliable evidence for God. So, Arden, what do you got for us?
Yeah. All right. So starting tomorrow on TACIS at 2 p.m. Central Time, you'll have Dr. Ben and Riverboat Jack. So if you want to talk about trans issues, you don't got to bring it here. You can take it there to the Transatlantic Call-In Show. Those where trans people take those calls specifically. There's a Cus I Wanna this Friday with Forrest and Erica. So if you didn't get enough of that on Monday, There will be more for you there. On Sunday at 1 p.m., the early show is going to be Matt with Austin Archer. Then you'll go to the Jimmy Show for a Calling It Now, and then back for After Dark with Forrest Valkai and Owen Morgan. John Gleason and Erica Gutsa-Gibbon will be doing Skeptalk on Monday. And then Promise and Alyssa will be doing Chewed Gum together again on Tuesday. And then finally, next Wednesday, right back here on The Hang Up, Matt will be joined by Ian Harris.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's good to remind people there are lines open. So if you want to defend a god, if you think that these two just can't get it, you want to call in, any other prompts, if you guys want to list some prompts or positions you're willing to defend, because that seems to help get callers in around.
Jesus fulfilled no prophecy. The Bible is not sufficient evidence for God. I don't know.
Wonderful.
That's a start. But, we might find out we're wrong right now. So Kevin is a theist calling from New York, pronouns are he, and wants to explain why the Bible is reliable evidence for God. Kevin, I'll give you a choice. And I don't do this very often, but I'd like for Dalton to get a good call on the show. And I'm just going to exercise. I'm not going to use the F word. I'm going to have exercise some trust that you are, in fact, a good faith caller, and give you the option to tell me to just not talk at all so that you and Dalton can have fun, or all three of us can talk.
You're giving me the choice of that?
Yeah.
But it would only be fair that everybody present have a say.
Okay. I might not talk too much, or I might talk the entire time, but I'm gonna try to err on the side of the first one. So yeah, you're here with me and Dalton. Why is the Bible reliable evidence for God?
The reason why I think that the Bible is reliable evidence for God is because I believe that a formula can be derived from these very same scriptures, which would then show us that it's God reaching out to us far beyond just a few centuries.
Would you want to elaborate on that? What do you mean by formula? Like a mathematics formula?
No, it almost seems like a formula because it's matching up different concepts and all of that. But it's taking some of what we already know, such as the concept of the Trinity, and then deriving more of its meaning, pointing to the scriptures. To be more specific,
there's going to be our first problem, right? There's going to be our first problem right there, Kevin. The Trinity's not in the Bible.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, no, there's no Trinity in the Bible. Right. Yeah.
The word
and
Trinity
also,
isn't used in the Bible, but
not just the word Trinity. The Trinity concept also doesn't make any sense. So we've got this thing where you're saying that you believe the Bible is reliable evidence for God because you think there's a formula that can be derived from the scriptures, or it seems like a formula that matches different concepts. And you started with the concept of the Trinity and deriving more of its meaning. What do you mean by the concept of the Trinity? How is that relevant to the Bible being evidence for God?
Before I continue, I'd like to say that I agree with you guys that the Trinity isn't even used in the Bible. It was a man-made sort of a way to categorize the idea of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit being as the ultimate power in heaven, I guess.
But Jesus isn't the ultimate power in heaven in the Bible. He's subordinate to the Father.
Yeah, that's right. But taking this concept of the Trinity, which is the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and then you look at the scriptures, that's when you can start to understand the beginning of this formula, which is that the Old Testament is the testament of the Father. The New Testament is the testament of the Son. But then all the other texts that are labeled as pseudepigraphical, that's how you pronounce it, or apocryphal texts, in my opinion, completes that formula as the testament of the Holy Spirit.
Well, there's a whole lot of
And there's
problems
a
with
lot of
this.
other things that, I'm sorry?
There's a lot of problem with this, starting with the presupposition that Jesus is the Son of God, which we have no reason to think. Jesus of Nazareth was nothing more than a rabbi who took a huge L from the Romans, and a cult started around him.
Well, I disagree with that. Well,
Do we have any good reason to
I
think
kind of
Jesus is
work off
anything
of
other than that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you just said, but it's because I was trying to get my thought out. But what I was going to say was that I've been working with the premise all along that any good movement, whether it be Christianity or not, can be hijacked along the way and made something into made something that it wasn't supposed to be.
So I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but we don't have any really good reason to think that Jesus was anything other than a regular guy. He wasn't the Son of God. He certainly wasn't the Messiah. Didn't fulfill a single prophecy, so he's not part of some Trinity. He's not part of some Godhead. He's not even divine in any sense of the word, unless you have any good reason for us to, like, before we can even start talking about the Trinity, like Jesus, the person of Jesus is in question here.
That's really interesting. I know I'm going to have difficulty proving to you that even the miracle accounts, or whether or not Jesus was the Son of God, was even true or not. But I think that the miraculous aspects of it can be revealed if it's looked at through a philosophical approach. Because
how does
even through
one philosophically
I'm sorry?
confirm the miracles of Jesus?
Can you repeat that?
How does one philosophically confirm the miracles of Jesus?
Or anything, but stick with that.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult to say this, but see also a reflection of his life in the sense of I can sort of say it in this way, that you can kind of see his life as the hero's journey, and that each and every one of us are going to go through that same thing.
Okay.
But
let me jump in for a couple seconds here, Kevin, because I'm really trying, and I've tried taking notes. So I asked, what do you mean by the Trinity, and how is that tied to the Bible being reliable evidence for God? And I don't think, and to be fair, I stopped talking and Dalton had a question, so I don't think we got anywhere near that. But where you went was the Scripture can be philosophically viewed as affirming God is real because of the way Jesus lived his life, but you haven't demonstrated that Jesus was real, or that the Bible accurately reflects how he lived his life, or how he lived his life in any way could confirm that a God exists. So I don't know that we've made any steps toward this.
Way too many presuppositions that are just being brought into the conversation that you have yet to establish.
I see what you're saying, and I already know that I'm going to have difficulty to prove that to you guys, because in truth, I have a lot of only what is available to everyone else. But what's so important for me to talk about is that it really all comes down to a matter of perspective, because in considering the existence of God, it really does make sense to me while reading these scriptures for reference that there would be a God that's more concerned over our souls rather than what happens to our bodies.
Okay, let me ask this. You say you know it's going to be difficult to prove this to us. Why wasn't it difficult to prove it to you?
Because of what I began the call with, the formulaic aspects of this stuff that I have yet to talk about, really. But I kind of told you about this before, man, in my last call with you with someone else. And I didn't really get to it. but I would have let go of these things that I see as a formula had it not seemed consistent to me.
Okay. What it sounds like is that you're saying you see patterns that make sense to you, and you don't think we're going to see the same patterns?
I could explain these patterns, but I guess that all depends on.
Why don't you give that an attempt? Because we've gotten nowhere. So let's at least try and explain a pattern, what you think you're seeing, and why we should see it too.
Well, to go back a little bit of what I was saying already, it goes back to a matter of perspective, because if you look at these scriptures, it's God revealing himself in a threefold aspect through the Old, New, and the apocryphal text in that order. And
Well,
even
the problem
some of
is
Jesus'
we don't
parables are, I'm sorry?
we don't have any reason to think any of these books are from a god. Like, if these books were from a god, we would expect them to be historically accurate, scientifically accurate, not make false prophecies. But the Bible is the only thing the Bible is consistent on is its inconsistency.
I disagree, because not only am I trying to explain all of this to you too, but these threefold aspects that I'm also trying to make clear also is a paradigm for Jesus's death, burial, and resurrection.
Kevin?
And
You said
the
that God
very
Kevin.
creation of these scriptures all the way up till now has fit that very same pattern.
Kevin,
Yes.
you said that God reveals himself in a threefold aspect with the Old, New, and apocryphal scriptures in that order. Except that the apocryphal scriptures, that's not the order. It doesn't go Old Testament, New Testament, and apocryphal texts. Apocryphal texts exist both consistent with the timeline of the Old Testament and the New. Why would God reveal himself in Old, New, apocryphal order and then release some apocryphal texts before the new ones?
That's a really good question. I don't know if this is going to be an answer for what you just said, but if the apocryphal text fits that categorization of being the testament of the Holy Spirit, then the function of the Holy Spirit is exactly that, to make things more, to bring clarity to things.
That's not even remotely an answer to what I said.
This doesn't even make sense in light of like standard Christianity. According to standard Christianity, the entirety of the Bible is inspired by the Holy Spirit.
Okay. What about standard timeline of when things were written?
What do you mean?
Well,
can you be more specific?
Sure. There are Tobit, Wisdom of Solomon, and other apocryphal texts that come before the New Testament. Why would those be written first, but part of a third revelation?
I don't know. I really don't. But I think it's safe to assume that both before and during Jesus' time, there were already scriptures that people went by.
That's not a response to anything that Matt just said.
Yeah. I apologize, Kevin. If I continue talking to you, I'm going to be an asshole, and I'd rather not be. I'm starting to feel, and this is not meant to be an asshole, I don't think that your connection to reality and language is the same as mine, because you're not answering and giving any response that is even in the ballpark of a sensible, cogent thought related to what I said.
Well, yeah, you were asking me, you mentioned the book of Tobit, you mentioned a book of Solomon or something like that, that was circulating during the earliest of Christian
I'm sorry.
eras,
Can you
during
name
Jesus' time, right?
Can you name apocryphal texts? Because you seem to think God's revealing himself in texts that you don't seem to know anything about.
Can I name some? You asked me?
Yeah, you said something about Solomon. So clearly there are apocryphal texts that you don't even know the name of. So how is it you can think that they're a third phase of God revealing himself?
Matt, I know that that's included in the apocryphal text. I know that that's only one of many that's part of.
What are they?
So I don't know what you mean. Well, there's the book
what
of
are the
Enoch.
texts?
There's the Acts of John. There's the prophecies of Isaiah. There's the Gospel of Nicodemus.
Sure.
There's many more.
But why didn't you know Wisdom of Solomon?
Oh my goodness! I know that was included in it, but I mean, it just didn't. It just wasn't mentioned.
Not to mention that while some of these books are classified within Protestantism as apocryphal, in other sects of Christianity, they're just canon of the scriptures. So, like this classification, there are books that you consider apocryphal and thus belong to the category of the Testament of the Holy Spirit, which in other sects of Christianity are actually just part of the Old Testament, such as Tobit and Judith, for example. They're just part of the Old Testament. Like
Catholics
this is
include
completely arbitrary.
Sirach, Baruch, Maccabees.
Yeah,
this is completely arbitrary and nonsensical.
Of the religion that I identify with from the very beginning of its creation, because I've said this to you before, Matt. Like people are so arbitrary that all these denominations of Christianity can't agree on what's valid or not.
Kevin, I don't need you to tell me that you said this to me before, because I genuinely don't remember any discussion with you. So we need to. I'm starting to kind of remember, but I don't remember the specifics. So we need to stay on here. How would you demonstrate to someone that the Bible is a reliable evidence for God? Because you called in to say that you think the Bible is reliable evidence for God. How would you go about demonstrating that?
Well, I was trying to attempt to do that now.
Kevin, listen to me. Kevin, listen to me. When I ask you a question, I need you to answer that question and not tell me what you were trying to do. Just answer that question. So which God are we talking about? What is the nature and characteristics of the God you think the Bible is evidence for?
The characteristics of the God that is from the Bible is a God that isn't concerned over what happens to our body, but what happens over our souls. A God who is who actually doesn't weigh us down with laws or you have to live a particular lifestyle, but is actually concerned whether or not a person is carrying around unforgiveness rather than these other things.
Why does the Bible have an entire
section? You
section
don't get to that.
No, Kevin.
You don't get to.
I get to do whatever the fuck I want right now. So you're telling me that the God you're telling me. I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm sorry, Kevin. Why are you still talking? Can you not hear me talking? You said that God's characteristics are that he's not concerned over our body, but our soul, and that he doesn't weigh us down with laws. Why is a good chunk of the Bible all about laws to the point that it's described as the label for a specific portion of the Old Testament?
Well, if we take all that with what you just said and everything, and consider that if God is what we expected God to be, which already knows the hearts and minds of all people, all of that was just put out there as the example of good versus evil so that we could then make the choice of what we prefer.
Kevin, I'm going to say goodbye now. Thank you for calling.
I don't even think Kevin knew what he was talking about.
Yeah. I'm not going to comment on that further because I have concerns and I don't want to be picking on. Anyway, let's move on. We got another theistic call. So Howard's calling from New York. Howard's pronouns are he, him, and he wants to discuss the mass revelation at Sinai. So welcome, Howard.
Oh,
You're on with Dalton and Matt.
The Kuzari hypothesis. I'm excited for this.
Yes. Good. I'm glad you're already familiar with that. So then I'll state the argument briefly. It sounds like you already know. There is an account in Exodus chapter 19, and then there's a repeated account in Deuteronomy of the large number of people in excess of potentially 600,000 or perhaps millions who all heard the same words that they heard directly from God, had a direct revelation from God, not some prophet who went up to a mountain and came back and said, God told me this, but actually they heard words being spoken by God, whatever that is, whatever that experience is. That account is in the book. Now that alone, of course, doesn't make it true. There was a nation of Israelites who believed this account, and scholars have spoken, the Kuzari being the first, and it's been discussed later, that it would have been very difficult to convince later people of a mass event of this kind if they did not have some historical accounts being passed down from generation to generation. It would be as if someone came to us now and said that, like, I don't know, at the signing of the Declaration of Independence, there was a big UFO that the entire city of Philadelphia saw, and they gave us the Declaration of Independence. There's no way anyone could believe such an account, because if anything remotely like that had happened, we would have heard about something about it sooner. So the Kuzari argument would posit that this is reasonable evidence for at least the accuracy of that account.
All right, so here's the biggest problem with the Kuzari hypothesis is that, first and foremost, we don't have any evidence of the Jewish people being enslaved in Egypt and leaving Egypt in a mass exodus. As far as the scholarship is concerned concerning the Torah, not written by a person named Moses, rather scholars favor what's called the documentary hypothesis, that the Torah is a compilation of 4 different sources, the J, E, P, and D source. Now, what probably happened, as far as we can tell, is that the ancient Israelites were just another group of another group of Canaanites. They were just another group of Canaan, and they have a cultural memory of a time prior to the collapse, the Bronze Age collapse, when the people of Canaan were being ruled over by the Egyptians. The various Canaanite kings were vassal kings for the Egyptians. The Egyptians ruled over the people of Canaan, and the Israelites came forth from the Canaanites. So there's a cultural memory of a time when their people were being ruled over by the Egyptians, and all that requires is that slowly but surely over the generations, this story morphs to become, we were ruled over by the Egyptians as Canaanites in the land of Canaan too. We were slaves in Egypt, and we came forth from Egypt and settled in the land of Canaan. And we don't get the Torah as we understand it, the 5 books of Moses, until the Babylonian exile, when that's when the composition of the Pentateuch occurs.
Okay. So there's a lot there. I don't know if I can address all those points, but let me just take a crack at it. So I wasn't saying anything about slavery. I understand that other parts of the Torah have the discussion of slavery. I was not using that in the Kuzari argument. I was strictly talking about the mass revelation at Sinai. How those people got to that place, I wasn't addressing. So you may be completely right about the Canaanites and the history of that, because Canaan was really part of Egypt, and so I get all that, and that could all be correct, but that still has nothing to do with how a people would come to accept as true a story that they would have had to have had generational memory about, that couldn't have just appeared out of nowhere. So,
well, it doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere suddenly. And first and secondly, no, the Egyptian slavery is important because the only reason that the children of Israel in the Torah are at Mount Sinai in the first place is because they are traveling from slavery in Egypt to the Holy Land. If the slavery in Egypt never occurred, then there is no exodus in the wilderness and then no settling in the land of Canaan. As far as all the evidence is concerned, the Israelites have always been in the land of Canaan because they were just another group of Canaanites. And again, it doesn't require for the myth of Mount Sinai to occur all at once. It requires it to be formulated slowly over the generations.
Okay, so again, the location of Mount Sinai and the reason that people were there could have something to do with slavery, or it might not. I get what the Torah says it does, but I wasn't positing that that's required. So, as far as the slow evolution of the myth, scholars that have looked at this, starting with Kuzari, obviously that's 1,400 years ago, but more recently also.
Kuzari was a Jewish man who believed in the authenticity of the Torah. We've come a long way in the scholarship since then. We know, for example, that the Torah was not the work of a single individual, Moses, that it has 4 distinct traditions that form it to be what we know today as the Torah. Again, if the children of Israel were not in Egypt in slavery, then no, they didn't travel to Mount Sinai. We have no evidence of a mass group of Jewish or Semitic peoples congregating at any Mount Sinai, which we don't know where Mount Sinai was. We have no evidence of any of this. This is just a myth.
I also have a question, Howard. Am I understanding you that you're saying you consider the mass revelation at Sinai reliable, but that doesn't mean that the slavery accounts were reliable, right?
For purposes of this argument, yes.
Okay. What other biblical claim becomes reliable because of the mass revelation at Sinai?
The way we would look at it, I suppose, would be that if you start off with the mass revelation at Sinai and its reliability, which I understand is what we're debating, and then take it as a given that there was actually God speaking to the Israelites at the time, you then you use that to latch the rest of the accounts as being reliable. In other words,
but
not
the account of them being enslaved in Egypt.
Well, I would say that it would make that reliable.
Oh, okay. So let's say for a second that we don't have any good explanation for why so many people for so long believed this account of the mass revelation at Sinai. And so we can reasonably say, and I don't think this, but we could reasonably say something happened. How could you determine that the believed mass revelation at Sinai is most probably the result of a God revealing something?
Right. So, first of all, the account itself verbatim says that the entire group of the nation of people that were there, in excess of 600,000, all heard what they perceived as God talking to them.
I'm sorry, you're not answering the question that I asked. First of all, there couldn't possibly have been 600,000. But here's the thing: if you let the other stories in, I'm saying the case is that Jews have believed that this event occurred, but we don't have any ability to investigate the event. And so the claim is that it would be hard to fabricate the story, which I don't think is hard at all. But let's assume that the story was believed, and it would have been difficult to fabricate that many people. But I mean, you could lie about how many people were there. Trump lies about how many people are at all of his events. But let's assume that something happened there and it became a story that was believed, perhaps exaggerated. What's the reason for saying the best explanation for the fact that this story was believed and spread is that a God actually presented a revelation there?
Part of the answer to that is in the text itself. And again, the text,
that's not possible
these
either.
are reasons to believe. Sorry?
No, I'm talking. So we're trying to figure out, we have an account of a story that has been believed. And the argument is that it would have been difficult to fabricate the actual facts of 600,000 or whoever believing it, and then generations believing it afterwards. Even if it's difficult to fabricate that, what makes it's absolutely true and God provided a revelation there the best explanation?
Okay. Some of the details of the account suggest that short of having technology that didn't exist at the time, the people experienced things that could only be characterized as supernatural. So that points at least to some supernatural source.
No, it doesn't. That is absolutely fallacious. That is an argument from incredulity. The fact that somebody doesn't know how something happened does not mean that it was supernatural. And the fact that we have no demonstration that anything supernatural could occur or did occur. We don't know how it happened. But even if we had good reason to think it was supernatural, that in no way demonstrates that the best explanation is that there was a God. How do you demonstrate that something you don't understand and cannot explain is most likely from a God?
As a general rule, I could not. I
Could
would not have
anybody?
a method of doing that.
I didn't mean to ask, can you, Howard, do it? Can humans in any way demonstrate that something we don't understand is most likely from a God, or is most likely supernatural, or that the supernatural is even possible? Which of those can humans demonstrate?
The closest I don't know. I was only answering for myself. The closest thing would be to rule out any known natural causes.
And if you rule out known natural causes, what's left? Unknown natural causes, for sure, are still left because we don't know everything there. Why is supernatural even a candidate explanation once you rule out known natural explanation?
I think the answer to that would be from other arguments. This alone would not be sufficient for that.
I'm sorry. It's funny you didn't mention evidence. You just mentioned other arguments. I'm looking as a skeptic for a way for us to verify that supernatural causation is even possible. How would you demonstrate that to somebody?
I would start by, the first step would be to see whether it's logically possible or logically impossible.
Okay, do that.
So, all right, well, I would not put it in the category of the logically impossible things like square circles, married bachelors, contradictions.
Okay.
Or that 2 + 2 is 5 or any of that. So it doesn't seem to belong in that set.
Okay.
So
is something that is you consider logically possible, is that in any way a demonstration that it is actually possible, empirically possible?
I honestly
answer's-
do not know how.
The answer
I
is
don't know
no.
how I would.
The answer is no. The fact that something is logically possible is in no way a demonstration that it is possible in reality. So that entire sidetrack that you did about I'd start with whether it's logically possible or impossible is absolutely useless for demonstrating whether it's actually possible empirically in reality. And that's what my question was. How do you demonstrate in reality that supernatural causation is possible?
I don't know.
Then how on earth could you ever claim it's possible?
I think I would have to resort to other arguments / evidence that point to the existence of God.
I think it's funny that you just said you don't know. And then when I asked, you give me a method where it's going to point to other arguments that point to the existence of God. Is there any evidence-based argument that points to the existence of God?
I think so, yes.
What?
The fine-tuning argument.
No.
Which I know I cracked that. I
Nope.
cracked that on Sunday, but I'm working on it.
You can keep trying, you can keep working on it, but the thing is, I don't know why this is so difficult, Howard. I just kind of walked you through it. Let's try this again.
Yes.
Let's say we have something that we do not have an explanation for. It doesn't matter what it is. If we rule out known natural explanations, there are still unknown natural explanations, right? Because we don't know everything about nature, right?
Sure. Yes.
Why would you ever prioritize a supernatural explanation that you cannot even demonstrate as possible instead of saying a natural explanation that we're unaware of is more likely than something we can't even demonstrate as possible?
I might prioritize the supernatural explanation if, based on other arguments and evidence, I had reason to believe in that supernatural explanation, that the existence.
What is
of
the
it.
reason to? No. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, Howard. I'm tired. I'm exhausted from this tap dance because every time we get to you having to say, you'll acknowledge you can't even say that the supernatural is possible, but there's arguments and evidence that convince you it's more likely than an unknown natural explanation. What argument and evidence points to a supernatural cause as being more probable than an unknown natural cause? And how could you ever determine how probable an unknown natural cause is?
I couldn't. You're right. I could
You
not.
couldn't.
Do the probability.
And yet you're doing it.
Correct.
You're doing it. Why are you doing it?
Why am I doing? I'm doing it because the account itself includes details that the people who were there said that were convinced that God spoke to them, and they all heard the same thing.
Okay. So your argument is fallacious on multiple grounds. It's so many fallacies, it's difficult to sort them out. It is circular because you're believing the details of the account and you are agreeing with the conclusions of the. Did ancient people have a better understanding of natural explanations versus supernatural explanations, or worse than us?
Worse.
Yeah. So you can't figure out why you're including the supernatural until you point to ancient people pointing to the supernatural. And yet they had worse understanding, which means why would you trust their conclusion if you know more and recognize you cannot reach that conclusion. That's like, isn't that just like saying, hey, the little kid told me there's a monster under their bed, and I don't think there is. I don't have any way to demonstrate it's even possible, but he was there. So I'm going to go ahead and go with his explanation that there's a monster under the bed. That's what you're doing, only with a God.
Well, can I tweak it a little? Your example?
Sure. I bet you $1 million it doesn't fundamentally change the logic, but go ahead.
It probably won't.
Then why fucking do it, Howard?
This is an account of 600,000 adults.
No, it's not. 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 You haven't proved that there were 600,000 there. You just accept that there were 600,000 there. You don't have an account from 600,000. You don't have any way to investigate the 600,000. The 600,000 is part of the story. But even if I told you 600,000 kids were convinced there was a monster under the bed, would you go with their story?
Well, it's a little bit closer than just the one.
No, it's not. The plural of anecdote isn't data. The number of people who are fucking wrong and irrational doesn't make their shared wrong, irrational conclusion right. It doesn't make it more reasonable. It doesn't make it more probable. That's not the way rational things work.
Howard?
We would be yeah, I'm you didn't ask a question, so I'm trying to figure out where to go next, or if I should just call.
I was leaving space, and I also want to let Dalton get in because he's a guest here, and I've been talking for a bit.
You're good, Matt. So, Howard, like, even if I was to grant you 600,000 people, and I was to grant you that they were really at Mount Sinai, that still doesn't mean that, you know, that they all heard God. I could really just start with one person who thinks that they hear God say something, and then they convince friends to retroactively misremember what occurred at Mount Sinai because peer pressure is a thing. And over generations of this happening gets you to a whole group of people thinking, oh yeah, all of our ancestors are God at Mount Sinai. We don't have, it's not like we have 600,000 testimonies from the ancient Israelites. We have one text here, the Torah, the book of Exodus, which itself isn't really one work from one author as far as all the evidence is concerned, and wasn't written during the time of Mount Sinai. It's written around the Babylon exile. This is not very good evidence, not testimonial evidence for anything.
Okay. All right. I have nothing further to respond to the points both of you have made, so I just need to think about it, I guess.
That's great, Howard. And first of all, let me say, while I certainly express my frustration, I greatly appreciate you calling, and I love the fact that we went round and round. You're going to go off and think about it. You're still working on teleological argument stuff, and if you find something better, let's do it. But at the end of the day, I'm stuck because I see no way to confirm that the supernatural is even possible. I see no way to confirm that a God is even possible. And until something's been shown to be possible, I don't get to include it in a list of candidate explanations, no matter how comforting or confusing it might be, to be stuck not knowing. The answer still has to be, I don't know. And I know that's uncomfortable for people, but we can't just go with the satisfying answer or the old answer or the one that we think 600,000 people went with. We've got to actually have a good reason. And 600,000 people, even if there were, they could be wrong. And if they don't have anything beyond, we thought it was a God, that's never going to be good enough. Shouldn't be good enough for anybody. Shouldn't have been good enough for them if it even happened. But anyway, Howard, I appreciate the call. Thanks. And call us back.
I have one question about something else that came up earlier.
Oh, sure.
Don't mind.
Yeah, no, we got time.
All right, Dalton, earlier before I got on, you made a statement that the Old Testament, I think you said the Old Testament says definitively that the earth is flat. Can you tell me
Yes.
where that is?
Isaiah
I'm
40
not
verse
asking because
22.
I disagree. I genuinely want to know where that is.
Yes, Isaiah 40 verse 22, the prophet of the section of Deutero Isaiah says, Hayoshev al-hu ha'aretz, he, being God, sits upon the circle of the earth. And the author of the book of Isaiah did have a word for ball in Hebrew being door, dalit vav resh, but instead they chose to use the word chug, and chug definitively means circle, which is a flat object.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah.
The book of Job says that God stamps out the earth like a clay seal, and if you know anything about the shape of clay seals, they are also flat. Genesis 1 mentions that the sky is a rakia, a dome that sits above the earth, which is not, factually or scientifically accurate. Yeah, the Hebrew Bible is full of flat earth imagery.
There's also the one I mentioned.
Dispute. I'm sorry. Go. There's more. Go ahead.
There's also a verse that I mentioned and got wrong. I thought it was in Isaiah, but it's actually Daniel, chapter 4, verses 10 through 12, and then it's referenced again. And it's about a tree, and the top of the tree reached heaven, and it was visible to the entire earth, to the end of the whole earth. That is not possible on a globe, but it is possible on a flat earth.
Okay.
And then there's the whole, he hangs the earth and it's sitting on pillars, and some of it you can say is metaphor. And I know there's, I don't know how strongly we may have found something that Dalton and I mildly disagree on, only because I've read apologetics from Jews and from Christians arguing that there's a way to dismiss the various things that seem to read as a flat earth. I think Dalton started with the strongest case, being using the word for circle instead of ball. That gives a clear impression. And here's the reason I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm mostly in agreement with Dalton on this, and that is you, Howard, are using the mass revelation at Sinai to try to build a case for the Bible. Let's assume for a second there is a God, and this God inspires the writing in the Bible and needs to communicate clearly with people. Why would he ever allow the author to use the word for circle instead of sphere if he knew that thousands of years later we would be sitting here saying, oh, they picked that specifically because they thought the earth was flat? If God is not the author of confusion, and there's confusion, then God is not the author of the Bible, and then we can just presume that somebody who did not know the shape of the earth wrote that passage and used circle, either metaphorically or literally, doesn't matter. They're misrepresenting it.
Right. I'm not sure if your question is rhetorical. I'll just assume that you actually want me to try to answer. Of course, I can't answer. I'm not in the mind of God, so I can't tell you why he did anything. But I could say that consistently throughout the text, there are hidden messages, hints. I don't mean that in some weird, symbolic type of way. Just the text is meant to be studied carefully, and to sort of use one's intellect to learn, to get the messages out of it. So
how do you know it's meant to be studied carefully, and what does that have to do with whether the author, why God would let him misrepresent the shape of the earth?
I slipped when I said meant. I guess I shouldn't have used that word, because that suggests I'm talking reason. The text suggests, the way the text is written, it appears as if one is supposed to, and one needs to study it carefully to glean the information.
Why would one need to? What is it about that passage in Isaiah where the author uses the word for circle instead of ball? Why would that be included to make things more confusing? What message could we possibly be needing to look for out of that?
I don't know. I haven't studied that. I can try to study it and see if I can come up with something, or see if there are any commentators that address that issue. I don't know.
Here's a last question. And I may have asked you this before, Howard, because I know we talked before. Why do you need to go find commentators? Why won't God answer it?
It's the same the answer that I just gave. That it's the way this is written is consistent with a book that's intended to be studied carefully to glean the messages. That one would spend their time using their intellect, studying it and trying to compare words and things just like you're doing. And that's the commentators have done that, and they're guides to understanding. I'll give you one example.
Couldn't that? Go ahead, Dalton.
I'm saying I'm pretty sure a God could make a text worthy of deep and reverential study without misrepresenting like the shape of the earth.
Right.
And also, I'd argue that I don't think I could name a book that has confusing information in it that someone couldn't claim there was a good reason for it to be confusing because the author wanted you to study and think and come up with a hidden message.
Post hoc rationalization.
That describes all of Shakespeare, as far as I can tell.
Cool.
All of Shakespeare is that way. I'm just so yes, I agree.
Why aren't you citing Shakespeare as anyway? What the point is, yeah, Dalton was saying it's post hoc rationalization. It's strange that the all-knowing, all-powerful creator of the universe inspires a book that's confusing specifically so that we can learn from it instead of just teaching us. And then all those other religious texts for all those other religions that one could make the same claim about, which you didn't have to go to Shakespeare. You could go to the Quran, you could go to the Bhagavad Gita, you could go to any religious text except for maybe Scientology. But I don't know, who knows? And you could say that all of those were designed for study and to intentionally be as obtuse by God. And so if that applies equally to all of them, and you're willing to pick one over the others, that seems like, I mean, that's a nice cherry you got.
I'm not picking it because of that. I'm not picking the Torah because it has that quality.
Okay. Why are you picking the Torah?
Why am I picking the Torah? Because the thing you just debunked, I have to think about.
Okay.
The story, the mass revelation at Sinai, is the only such story of mass revelation in any religion. All the other religions,
that's not
individuals.
True. That's not true.
Okay.
There's a story of mass revelation. There's a story of mass revelation in the New Testament, right?
I don't know the New Testament, so I only go by what I have read and heard scholars, the obvious Bible scholars, say that this is the only one. So I haven't scoured all the others.
When you say Bible scholars, do you just mean rabbis and Torah scholars, or are we talking secular scholarship?
Secular scholars.
Yeah.
What secular scholar is making the claim that the Torah alone has mass revelation? I'd like to know a name.
Of Kellerman, I think, was one that I was just listening to.
Kellerman?
So just
got his first name. I believe Kellerman. I believe. I could be wrong.
I haven't dug in on this, but just briefly, Greek mythology holds that Athena and Poseidon appeared to the people of Athens. Hinduism has a number of collective experiences of divine intervention. The Aztec religion has a god guiding them through the desert to their promised land, speaking directly to them, which sounds suspiciously like what we hear in the Torah. Then there's other Native American traditions, and then Judaism and Christianity, and that's just a quick thing. Like the white buffalo calf woman's teaching to the Lakota. And this is just what Google AI popped up with a quick search for mass revelations in various religions. So I haven't dug in on any of them. And it's possible that the one you're pointing to about Sinai is distinct in some way, but then you have to ask yourself, is that distinction enough for me to view it preferably over these other ones? Maybe one of those other ones that you haven't looked in has a distinction that's even more preferable. Hey, were you raised Jewish?
Yes. Yes.
You think maybe that's why you picked it?
I wouldn't go that far.
I would.
If you're asking me, I don't want to. I know you don't like people giving their life story, so I've been not doing that. But these arguments that the one I botched on Sunday, the one I screwed up today, these are arguments that were given to me when I was learning in yeshiva as the reasons why we're sure this is all correct. And I have others, which I'm sure I'll screw up just as badly in our future calls.
So you were raised Jewish and taught Judaism and given the arguments for it, and you don't think that's the reason that you're buying them now?
I am, what I would call I'm stress testing them. Because no one else calls you. I've been listening to your show for years, and you know, Forrest and everyone else, and I have been waiting for someone to call with what I would recognize as credible arguments. And I'm not that good at this, but I figured I might as well I'll have to try it because I need to stress test these arguments.
You're better than you think, Howard.
Sunday,
you're better than you think because you're better than you think because you are willing to pause and acknowledge, oh, wow, that didn't go the way I thought it was, or I hadn't considered that angle. I'm going to go off and think about it. That makes you better at this than you think. Being good at this isn't about having the right answers. It's about asking the right questions and then willing to reevaluate things. So the stress testing is fine. It's just, I don't think we don't know what we don't know. And I think you're finding out that there's things that you were taught that are incomplete, or insufficient that anybody would have gone with if everybody around them agreed with them. And so you're stress testing. Keep it up.
Well, my point is, I really wish one of those rabbis who taught me this would be the one calling in, but they're not going to do that. So
they're not. And evidently neither is God. And it's funny how for 20 years I've been here pointing out how all these gods are trash, they're immoral, they're cruel, they don't provide evidence for their existence, they're irrational. And yet here I sit, no bolt of lightning. I mean, hell, I've had triple bypass. It'd be really easy for a god to take me out. They don't take me out, and they don't bother to call, and they don't send their representatives. They didn't send a rabbi. And don't get me wrong, I've debated religious leaders, scholars, but they're not going to call into the show. And also, when we debate, it's a very structured thing, and not one of them has done any better than the best caller to any of the shows I've done over 20 years. The only difference between William Lane Craig, for example, with regard to Christianity, and Ray Comfort is that William Lane Craig is significantly better educated and better spoken, which means he's better at obfuscating how bad his arguments are compared to Ray. Ray is a cartoon. The same thing is like with Kent Hovind, Ken Ham, those guys, the young earth creationists, all this. They're on weaker footing. They just don't know it, which I guess makes them slightly more honest. But anyway, Howard, I appreciate the call. We got to wrap it up and get on to super chats. Think about it some more and give us a call back.
Last thing, just in the section later in Exodus, I guess just because we're never going to, this issue of the flat earth is never going to come up again in any of my future calls. I can't, so I have to get this in. There's a discussion of the tabernacle construction, which includes the various vessels that were used in the services there. One of them is a round, a spherical silver bowl And one of the commentators, 11th century commentators, Rashi, says that symbolizes the earth. So that a spherical bowl symbolizes the earth, wherever that's worth.
A spherical bowl symbolizing the earth is the earth as the bottom and the top as the firmament, which is not consistent with a globe earth.
No, it's not what he said.
And this is just Rashi. This is just Rashi giving his Rashi, who lived during the medieval period at a time when the spherical earth was already round. Of course, he wants to recontextualize the Bible and renegotiate with it in order to present retroactively read a spherical earth model into it. But I've never seen a bowl that's truly shaped like a sphere. Never.
That's not even a bowl.
Yeah, that's just a ball.
It's not a flat disc, is my point. It's not a circle. Not a circle. But okay,
it is a circle.
Debunked. You said it's Rashi is just trying to make things science fit the Torah. I get it. Okay.
All right.
I understand. I'm not being wise-ass. I get it.
No. It's you keep bringing up something new, and Dalton and I are incapable of just letting it go. And that's why we do the shows. So call us back with something else or something like that another time.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, Howard. All right.
Matt, one of the biggest differences between someone like Howard and someone like Christopher is that Howard is at least humble. I wish more Christians would follow the words of Micah 6:8 to do justice, love mercy, and to walk humbly before your God. But sadly, most of these, especially MAGA Christians, hate justice, do not like mercy, and have way too much ego.
Yeah, and one of their favorite things is to constantly point out how arrogant I am, but I'm right, so I can afford it. Anyway, we got a bunch of super chats to go through. I need to get my screen up because I haven't even done that. But while we're getting ready for that, Arden, you want to go through announcements one more time before I start taking the supers?
Sure. Oops, hold on one second. I was over in the screening room and I had my screening room headphones on, which give me a playback of my own voice about 2 seconds after the fact, which is super disorienting to try to give announcements through. Okay. So coming up this week, starting with tomorrow on TACIS at 2 p.m. Central Time, will be Dr. Ben and Riverboat Jack. If you guys don't know, Riverboat Jack is officially a part of the Lines team. So if you've liked her content, you're going to be seeing a lot more of her here on the line. This Friday is a Cus I Wanna with Forrest Valkai and Erica Gutsa-Gibbons. So if you didn't get enough of it on Monday, somehow there's still more for you there. Sunday at 1 p.m. Central Time will be Matt Dillahunty with Austin Archer on the Sunday show. Then after dark will be Forrest Valkai and Owen Morgan. John Gleason will be joined by Erica Gutsa-Gibbon for Skeptalk. Erica's got a ton of shows, all in a tight time span.
Good.
Love to see it. Then we've got Alyssa and Promise doing a Chewed Gum together while we still have Promise for some late shows here next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. And then Ian Harris will be joining us back here right here on the Hang Up next Wednesday at 6 p.m. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And I have a couple of quick announcements of things that I will be doing that have nothing to do with the line. And actually nothing to do with most any of this. And that is on the 21st, which is not this weekend, but next weekend, I was supposed to be at the Austin Magic Auction. I've been looking forward to it, but I also forgot the weekend of the 21st, I am working the Herps Reptile Expo in Corpus Christi. So if you're in the Corpus Christi area, look up Herps, Herps. That Reptile Expo is the weekend of the 21st. I'll be there the 21st and 22nd, which means I also will not be on the Sunday show on the 22nd. And then, is it 1 week? No, it's 2 weeks later. I will be at NARBC in Dallas. That's a North American Reptile Breeder Conference. That is one of the biggest shows of the year. I'm going to be taking basically everything we're potentially looking to unload. So that means not just a bunch of baby ball pythons and geckos, but also Kenyan zebra skinks, a mangrove snake if it doesn't sell at Herps, etc.
A bunch of breeder geckos. Used by our breeder geckos.
Crested and gargoyle. And then April 25th, I'll be doing another Herp show in Belton. So if you're anywhere near Dallas Fort Worth, Austin Belton, or Corpus Christi. Those are the 3 shows coming up over the next 3 months. And yeah, you can also go to morphmarket.com and look up Epic Loot Exotics, and we've got geckos up there. If you were looking for geckos from us, it's been too cold to ship, but we're actually getting ready to start shipping. I was going to ship one out this week, but unfortunately the recipient was in Louisville, Kentucky, and it's way too cold to ship a gecko to Louisville.
Also,
right.
Dalton, you can plug your stuff while we're doing all this plugging.
Yes, plug stuff.
Oh yeah, so I love getting plugged. Check you can find me at the Bible Guy on TikTok or YouTube. We're a growing channel, and we're really just getting started, but it's been a great year so far, and I can't wait to do more stuff like this in the future. So just find me at the Bible Guy.
Awesome. Well, we got a handful of super chats, but I'm thinking there will be some others coming in. We're going to read all of them over $10. I know sometimes we've dropped it down to $5, but there's a lot going on right now. So if we don't get a ton tonight, please remember to like and subscribe. You can go to patreon.com/calltheline. You can go to linemerch.com. But right now, in addition to these, I'm assuming I don't know, Arden, can we do kind of what we did the other day, which is if anybody wants to do like a $5 fuck Pam Bondi?
Yeah, we can take any value if you're gonna say fuck Pam Bondi.
I will do that. I will do the fuck Pam Bondis, because what I saw today was an absolute unbelievable train wreck of a mess of lies and avoiding. Am I set up for that? Nope. I was going to see if we could all be in space, but it was really weird. And actually, I say weird in the sense that it's what Pam does every single time, pulls out her dossier and avoids answering any questions. But it's still weird to watch people allow that to happen. That I don't know why she's not being held in contempt of Congress all the time. But here we go. 10 pounds from Herbie Shine 1312. Great to see Dalton on the line. I hope it can become a regular gig. Dillahunty and Son. Oh God, don't do that. This is a good person who happened to shave their head and wear a similar colored shirt. We don't need Dillahunty and Son. He doesn't need to be saddled with that. We need people to do this without being saddled with me. But the 2 Bible guys, that's actually not fair either. When Dalton and Justin work together, now you're talking about 2 Bible guys. I'm just a guy that knows more than any of the Christians sitting in the pews knows.
Matt, you corrected Dalton, but that's like 3 levels of inside joke lore that you're missing out on.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, on my channel, some random caller once called me Duncan, and now it's sort of a meme on the channel that they will call me every name under the sun that starts with a D other than Dalton. So that's just what that is.
I thought I was just correcting a typo. See, this is it. I'm old. I don't know what you kids are doing. Get off my fucking lawn. I hope that, instead of $5 for your fuck Pam Bondi, we get 6, 7. Your turn. We'll alternate.
Oh yeah, it's I can't. It's really small. It's off the top of the screen. I can't.
Oh,
if you can't see it, I will do them all.
We can also.
Oh, here.
Yeah, you have to pin the window and zoom. It's annoying.
I gotcha. Okay. $50 from Paul Trump. I'm
Nice.
not a Christ cuck, but you Christians need to vote for me. Oh, and I've never read the Bibli. No, that man has never touched a Bible in his whole life, and that's
not true.
That's obvious.
I've watched him touch a Bible that he held up as a prop, and he has his own Bible. And by the way, he didn't say he's never read the Bible. This is another meme that got passed around it with misinformation. Somebody said, even if he's never read the Bible, and Trump read it without actually correcting it. And by the way, when he said 2 Chronicles, while most of us would say 2 Chronicles, I have heard actual Bible scholars say 2 Chronicles. So that's not enough to say that he doesn't know what he's talking about and has never read it. But the guy doesn't know the Bible and has probably never read much of it.
And even if he did, he definitely doesn't agree with it, obviously.
Yeah.
Eat the rich.
He finds it useful. $10 from Intellectual Talks. People who are immigrants, doesn't matter legally or illegally, who are trying to live their lives and make an honest living are criminals, but people in Epstein files from over the world, saints. I don't know if they would actually call them saints, but boy, they treat them far closer to saints than they do criminals. I was never Catholic, so the saints thing doesn't make sense to me. It's too culty.
All right. I don't know why it's not it's like all I see is Matt right now.
Oh, at the top of the window, there should be 3. There's me, you, and the one that has everybody in it. If you click the hamburger menu on the everybody one and select pin, it will make that one big.
Okay, here we go. Okay. All right. $10 from Hypagon. By how much was the soul in the New Testament influenced by Plato's version of the soul? From what I know, entire phrases and words such as logos were taken from him and used in the Bible. So, by the time you do get to the New Testament, there is like a huge influence on Jewish people from Hellenistic philosophy. I mean, we do sort of see within the book of Hebrews, for example, the author talking about how there are the real objects on earth, but then there's a copy of everything in the heavens, which is very similar to the Platonic idea of like forms and whatnot in the heavenly places. And of course, the Logos, which is in John, is taken from Greek philosophy. So were they inspired by Greek philosophy in regards to the soul? So, well, here's the thing. We don't get a lot of information on like the metaphysics of the soul in the New Testament. Now, within later post-biblical Christian talk, yeah, of course, if you're going to read Justin Martyr or anything like that, then their writings on the soul are indeed going to be heavily influenced by Greek philosophy, because post-biblical Christianity is nothing more than Greek philosophy with a sprinkling of Bible.
There's a reason they talk about it being Hellenistic, and also and I'm not Jewish and don't read Hebrew, but what I've always said, and it could be wrong, so here's a good chance to correct. It's very difficult to look at the Old Testament and Judaism and get a concept of a soul with regard to like afterlife, because when they describe death, it's like, and then he slept with his fathers, and there's not a lot of you go somewhere, but it also doesn't always feel like an end, because there's the notion that God could bring you back. So it looks very early formative of we haven't developed the theology around this. And then when Christianity is being formed, Matthew, desperate to make him seem to be fulfilling prophecy that he absolutely does not fulfill, about, being a Messiah, like Matthew and others. I shouldn't just put it all on Matthew, although he's a major culprit. Start inventing concepts based on things that were starting to become popular in other religions beyond Judaism. And that's how you get the Hellenistic stuff, the stuff from the Greeks. You get the stuff that seems similar to Zoroastrianism. But I don't know enough, and I'm not sure that anybody does, or that you could conclusively map out, oh, it went from this version of Judaism to here, and these merged here, and this got here, and this was, because there's a lot of syncretism of, hey, we're going to borrow things, because if I need to convince you that this God that comes from my ancestors is real and yours is false, there needs to be some sort of overlap, some sort of whatever appealed to you about the gods you have. It's like, how many times have you heard it? Oh, we're all talking about the same God. They're just describing it in different ways. That's been around seemingly forever. Our God is the one true God. Only happened after our God is more powerful than your God. So you get in the Old Testament, all the Pharaoh's magicians appealing to their gods could do wonderful miracles, and truly wonderful miracles. And it's just that, Moses's God was better. So when they threw down their sticks and they turned into snakes, Moses' God made a bigger snake. Because let's be honest, it's all about having a bigger snake.
Accurate, yeah.
$10 from Joshua Everett, 9887. Too many believers are too busy out there carrying water for PDFs and fascists to bother learning the Bibles or defending their faith. To be fair, even when they weren't carrying water for those guys, they were too busy to learn their Bible or defend their faith.
And 10 Canuck bucks from Sad Tech Geek. Please call Christopher's mom, Matt. And if it's legal, share the call. Would love to see that interaction. Kids today, am I right? Love you, Matt and Dalton. Hashtag gay for
It's
I
actually
don't know what.
Go fuck yourself, Jimmy.
Oh, go fuck yourself, Jimmy. God, I get a lot of gay for Dalton and gay for Justin's on my channel, so that's why.
I can see that. Yeah, don't worry. And Christopher, you're safe. I'm not going to find out who you are. I'm not going to call you mommy. I just wish you strung us along for quite a while, and it would have been nice when you were clearly busted, because anybody who had even, this much knowledge of the Bible and Judaism and Christianity knew you were full of shit from, 45 seconds into the call. But I was trying to see if we could get somewhere. But once you're completely busted, you could have just been like, yeah, this is what I decided to do. I was having fun. I was bored, whatever. And then I wouldn't have banned you, because someday, I know you don't think so, someday you might have a question on these subjects that you might be able to benefit from one of the many hosts on the network being able to answer a question. Someday you might decide to care. So no, I'm not going to look you up. I'm not going to I jotted down your phone number, but that's only so we could ban it. I'm not going to call mommy. Anyway, get a new phone number someday. You can call back. All right. $10 from Renegade Sapper for Dalton. There's two kinds of people in this world: those who think there's two kinds of people and those who don't.
I guess that's accurate, I suppose. And $20 from Paul. We're all going to hell. Oh, the debauchery. And you know what? All the scientists are in hell at this point, so it's going to be air conditioned, so I'm sure we'll be fine.
That might be the most interesting way I've seen debauchery spelled. I'm not going to pick on you too much because you gave me $20 and it might be a reference. But I was like, what is debauchery? Oh, debauchery. Good job. $10 from Jared Swanson, 4575. I was excited when I first turned on the show and saw that Dalton was on the line and teamed up with Matt. You guys are great together. Thank you for all the amazing content. We're going to keep doing this whenever Dalton is available to come back, in the hopes that we can get some good calls. Because what I want most is to sit back, be able to be involved, watch Dalton engage with some folks while I play a game of chess and take notes. And then jot down my notes and then jump in with the so I look like a fucking hero, even if I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. It's a good plan.
I'm 100% behind it. Yeah. And then $10 again from Paul. Smash that like button, puppies and kittens.
To be fair, that's Catines, because Paul really likes as many doubled letters as he can. You got it right in button and puppies and kittens. It needs two, because they're cute, which you could spell with two U's. $20 from Show 2001. Thank you so much, Show. From Howard in New York. Thanks for your patience with my crap. Oh, I meant what I said. Wednesday's my therapy, but all I ever really want is to have genuine conversations with people where I learn something, they learn something, somebody watching learns something. The only thing we learned from Christopher is that he's full of shit and bored. I mean, I would have rather been playing a video game than calling to troll a show, but evidently Mama doesn't allow that. So, which, you know, I get. My mom was opposed to that, and they were brand new. Like my first console was a ColecoVision, and I had Zaxxon, Ladybug, and Popeye, and those were the only games I had for it because my folks saved up forever to get a ColecoVision, and then I traded it for I think a TI 99 4A. But
God, we're spoiled. All right. And 1999 from Balthazar. If a herp show isn't working out, is it a reptile dysfunction?
It definitely is. By the way, these things end up being a great place to bring your kids, even if you're not looking for an animal to buy. They get to see a lot of different species. Don't worry, they'll see a ton of ball pythons. The ball pythons come in such a wide variety that it feels like I've got 25 of them probably over in the rack just off to the right here, and no two of them look exactly the same. Amazing genetic variety in that species. And we work with 19 species of snakes right now.
I've always liked rainbow ball python. I thought they were very pretty.
Rainbow boas.
Rainbow boa. Yeah, that's right.
There's Brazilian rainbow and Colombian rainbow. Brazilian rainbows are the prettier ones.
I think there is a rainbow morph in ball pythons, though. If that's what
there is a rainbow morph in ball pythons. It's a little like clown, but with better coloring. Or sorry, a little like banana, but with better coloring. Pretty rare though. $20. Thank you so much, Nexus Spectre. Thank you for having Duncan on. That was my pleasure. Hashtag rock hard for Doug. Or Duncan. Or Dalton. Or Dalton.
Sure.
Or we're just rock hard for all of it.
Yeah.
Oops.
And then $10 from Aaliyah Shauna Silverbow. What does Captain America say when he wants an orchestra? Avengers Ensemble. Matt, you promised me a joke.
I know. And I had a specific joke, and now I don't remember the context.
Matt, who is the funniest guy in the Bible?
Oh, I'm not going to remember. Go.
Samson. He brought the whole house down.
Oh, I thought there was the died laughing. I thought there was a pun there. Okay. Samson brought the whole house down. Nice. See, I can't. You guys wait till the end of the show and then expect my brain to work. My brain's done now. You're lucky I can still read English. $5 from Paul. Hey, Paul, Pam bondage sucks. You know what I will say is no shit. I'm not just commenting on someone's looks just to be commenting on it. Pam Bondi looks freakishly good for her age. I think she's like 60. If only she could be that honest.
Where is Waldo with the 5 Connect bucks? Fuck Pam Bondi and the PDF files Gestapo. Not literally, of course, no one would. Ain't that the truth? Fuck them all.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. She's dishonest as fuck and as close to evil personified as I've met. And definitely not my type. But she don't look 60. I mean, I'm 56. And I think I don't look quite 56, but I look closer to 56 than she looks to 60 for sure. And also, Kid Rock, I went and watched a minute of that halftime bullshit that he did, where he lip synced his way through it and then did a special show trying to claim he wasn't lip syncing. He's 55. I think he looks older than me if you get a look at his face, but there's no denying he was able to dance around on that stage way better than I could have. I would have had another heart attack and passed out if I tried to do that much dancing. So good job, Kid Rock. You can really flail around while not singing. $5 from, oh, did you do this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I got so distracted, I missed it. $10 from Joshua Everett. Thank you, Joshua. In a just world, Pam Bondi would go back to her origins as a sewer witch and never be heard from again. Let's hold Nuremberg 2.0 in Minneapolis and fuck Pam Bondi. Yeah, I agree. On all counts.
And then £2 from Barbara Barrett. Bondi, no integrity, no morals, and no reflection. Accurate.
That's how she never ages. That's what it is. $10 from Green Man Dave. There's 10 kinds of people in the world. Those who understand base 2 math. Oh, and those who don't. See, I was just going to say binary. I was going to just finish the joke, but you changed it from binary to base 2 math. And I was like, nice. Also, fuck Pam Bondi. Well done, Green Man Dave. So, Dalton, anything you want to say to wrap this all up? I'm thrilled. I wish we'd have gotten some better callers, but I think we will on other days. And you're always welcome back.
Absolutely, whenever you want me. And Christians, my only message to you is crack your fucking Bibles open and read it, like for the love of your God.
Please. It is years and years and years I've been waiting for somebody to say, hey, here's what you missed. And inevitably, we don't get a here's what you missed. We get, oh, did you know about this? Yeah. Did you know about that? Yeah. Did you know about that? That's not actually in your book. Well, what about that? Ooh, that's not true either. They're not eyewitnesses. There's no way to confirm this. We have no reason to think the supernatural. Not everything points to a God. Nothing points to a God, but our ignorance and our fear and our anxiety about not knowing what the real answer is. And the problem with accepting the wrong answer and feeling comfortable with it is that even if you do it tentatively, why would you go looking for another answer if you think you already got the right one? And by the way, what's it feel like to be wrong? Well, it feels exactly like being right until you find out you're wrong. And the nice thing about finding out you're wrong is you don't have to stay that way. And if you do, now you're just dishonest because you know you're wrong and you're just going to keep going with it. It's wild. Thanks everybody for calling. Thanks for the good callers that we got and the bad callers we got, except maybe Christopher. Go get a hobby, bud. Thanks to Arden for producing, to Dragon for call screening. Don't forget, there are other shows on this network, including tomorrow, the Transatlantic Call-In Show. Take care of each other. Fuck fascism. Stand up. Vote. Fight back. Things are going to get worse before they get better, but you're not alone. Patreon.